So this is the December 5th Town of Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We don't have an agenda per se to talk about, so let's talk about the minutes. There were two sets of minutes. I had only one very minor comment somewhere. Jill Veith was identified as Jill, and everybody else has got their last name in there, so you might want to change that. But that one was fixed, okay?
It should be in there. You should have an updated version.
Maybe I got an updated version by email. And okay, so that was it for me. Did anybody else have any comments about the minutes?
Nope. Hold on, I'm trying to find.
I mean, in, yeah, there was November 27th and October 30th. Okay.
Oh, so it was just said she is curious about the basement units. This is something I said. She wants to ensure they're appropriately spread out. That should have just said affordable units.
Oh, you're talking about 1127?
Yeah.
Okay, page
6?
6 of the 1127 minutes need to be amended to say,
It's just something that said, the quote is, she's curious about the basement units. She wants to ensure they're appropriately spread out and don't end up in basements. I think the word basement should have been affordable.
okay.
We should be hearing right now, because I can't hear anything.
Yeah, talk into the mic, please.
Sorry. I was just clarifying something from the minutes saying that I had concerns about all of them letting us know where the affordable units were going in the condominiums because I didn't want them all to end up in the basement.
Okay, so does that change needs to be made and then we would approve it, Eleanor?
Improve it as amended.
We can improve it as amended. I'm good with that. Okay, does anybody else have any comments about the minutes? So let's do them one at a time. Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended, the last one we got?
Go move.
Karen makes that motion. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Lisa seconds it. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, so then on the November 27, 2018 minutes, Lisa there were a couple edits. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Karen makes the motion.
I'll second that.
Lisa seconds. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, let me get rid of this paper. All right. So, we're here today to start, or we're going to start today talking about the agricultural, I mean, oh, we're starting a farm there. The architectural details and whatnot, primarily, well, right now, we're going to start with the single-family home portion of the development. So, does the developer have anything to say in introduction, or? Go ahead. No? Yes? Maybe?
Josh Posner for the applicant. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're ready to talk about the single family. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So, yes, we are looking forward to talking about the single family cottages today. We appreciated the feedback that we got just last week on the multifamily condominium buildings, and we are in the process of absorbing some of that feedback, and we hope when we get to later in the agenda when we're scheduling future meetings that we can get back to you with some thoughts and responses to those. If there's time today, we also thought we maybe would have a chance to explain the reasoning behind the recreation building, which we know is a significant part of the development. And we think it's important, and we wanted to just make sure you're understanding the reasons why. Not that it is cast in concrete, but that we're looking forward to establishing a good back and forth dialogue on the architectural and programmatic aspects of what we've proposed.
Okay, thank you. So let's get started. Why don't we just dive into, Lisa, this is more your expertise than mine. So what do you think, just go building by building?
I think so. What I'm looking for is an updated site plan that shows where the sorry. I was looking for an updated plan showing where the units are spread out onto in the development. Do you know what page it's on in the packet?
Do I know offhand? No.
No. It's in one of these. I just have so many packets. Just because it's helpful to see how they're spread out, I think. Do you guys have that? Do you have that slide that you can put up? Just the slide that shows where the different units go and which ones are affordable. Oh, well, they say A. No, see, they don't see the type of unit.
Lisa, you need the jeweler's loop, though. I can't read it.
What page are you on? Oh, so what package
Try
is that from?
65.
That's it's this week's packet.
Okay.
And the
Try
supplemental.
65.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that's what
65,
I just showed you.
66, 67, 67. I can't tell if it was a supplemental or
Yeah,
the...
mine doesn't have page.
Oh, got it. Okay. Mine doesn't have page
All
numbers,
right.
but that's okay. We'll-
You can look at mine, look at mine.
Yeah.
Let's start with A.
I didn't bring my iPad today. and
Okay.
can't. Oh, here, Lisa. It's
No, it's not that one.
it's not this one?
No, it's this one.
Just to clarify, we have no HDC or planning board review of these comments?
Well, we had an initial,
We had initial ones from the previous submission.
We're scheduled to appear before the HCC on the 13th.
Okay.
now when you say,
Are they hearing it
are
then?
you hearing, is the HDC hearing this as you're going to the HDC?
Not formally, on an informal basis for feedback on the design and the modified
Yeah,
design.
for some reason I can hardly hear you, and
We will be on the agenda for December 13th HDC, which is hearing on an informal basis to get commentary.
So is it appropriate, should we be even talking about it?
Wait, hold on. Sorry, what was the date you're going?
The 13th,
So that's the Thursday?
it's a Thursday, yes.
So we'll be downstairs meeting during that time.
on the regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, because, I mean, would it make sense for maybe Lisa to go upstairs during that meeting to,
They aren't meeting in the PSF building.
oh, they're not?
Oh,
Oh, in that little room?
still
Oh,
could
that's
do
not
it.
going to be very fun.
Still, I mean, it's not, I mean, Lisa could walk over there.
Yeah, I
It's
can
not like
go.
it's-
Yeah.
I think that would make
One of
sense.
us should be there,
Yeah.
so, only one of us, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you
But-
feel about that, Lisa?
That's fine.
I think that would be very much worthwhile.
All right, is your discussion with the HDC going to be restricted to the single-family homes at this point?
Okay, so Jamie Feely for the record. So at the last meeting, there was some discussion by you guys that you'd like us to go to the HDC. We were then contacted by Eleanor, who tied John Hedden into an email asking us if we could do Tuesday of this week, or excuse me, of last week. This week or last week? Anyway, we said that we could. It got changed from Tuesday to Thursday, which was fine by us. Then turned out a couple of the commissioners aren't going to be there this Thursday, so then it got changed till next Thursday. So we're just showing up because we've been asked to by you all.
Okay, well, I think we can give some initial comments.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, is your position still, I mean, quite frankly, we would prefer you to go to the HDC, period, and let them deal with this since it is their expertise. But
No. Doesn't sound like this.
was that a no?
Yeah, and there's been some back and forth on that, and at one point, it was made clear to us by this board that you were acting as HDC, so.
No, we have to.
You
and-
requested us
yeah.
Correct.
All right, one at a time. I can hear you, but I don't think the audience can. So the consensus of the development group was they're not do not want to go to the HDC. They want us to go, be the HDC. I'm having trouble tonight. So, having said that, it would be nice to have the HDC comments, but why don't we give what our comments
Right.
are?
So it looks like you changed the architecture of Building A. Is that right?
That's correct.
You made it lower, because the original submission, it was 30 feet tall.
That's correct. I don't think it's in our current slide program. It was basically 2.5-story structure. There was a market rate unit and an affordable unit, and it topped out at 30 feet.
Right.
So that was eliminated, and we substituted another type A, which is a little bit, I think it's about 28.5 feet in height. And that is only a market rate unit.
We said those are architectural plans, the rolled up ones. Oh, okay. I don't
Take
have
these.
them.
Keep going. I'll unroll these.
And I also want to point out a typo here, that the bottom building elevations, which I think reads as side elevation, is actually the front elevation.
Which page are you on, Chris? Okay.
These are ready. Take a look at these. This is a little bit of a
Mr. Chairman, may I make a recommendation, since we do not have an affordable component to the type A, could we go to the type B, C, and D, which all have an affordable component, and review them and then come back to the A?
Why? Sorry.
What's the rationale for that?
Yeah.
Just to basic, because we're talking about affordable housing, so we thought it might be beneficial. I know this is the way it's organized, but it might be more beneficial.
No, I don't think it matters. Let's just
Okay.
start with A. I
Okay.
had some comments, so I'll just have to, now that I've found the big plan. Again, I think what we need, as the HDC, I would like to see, and I don't even know if the HDC requires this, but a trim detail of the windows. It looks like there is some sort of drip cap and whatnot. Just want to make sure that's part of the record plan, that you are intending to do that. So you should be able to provide that detail for us.
We can. I mean, there is a detail for that.
Sure. It does look like the rakes project. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, so is there, I guess there's a little there is a little freeze underneath the rake. I'm looking at the front gable right now. It's just very difficult, number one, to see. But, so, I mean, the easy thing to do would just provide details.
And we have the
Okay.
details for this unit, so that's not a problem.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask about paint color. Are they all going to be painted? Do you have an idea of how they'll be painted? What colors they'll be painted? Will they be natural?
We haven't gotten that far yet. I know that our intent is to basically provide sort of a variety of color schemes throughout the development, so that you're not looking at two
Right.
white trim houses adjacent to one another, but we haven't committed to that yet.
Well, there are white trim houses next to each other on Nantucket all over the place.
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
and that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
yeah.
I
it's-
think just understanding the palette and then the roof colors, will they all be asphalt architecturals? Or are they going to be
No,
single?
all of the roof shingles throughout this entire project will be wood, red cedar, natural to
Okay.
weather.
So is this going to be all typed out someplace where we will have a list of materials?
If you would like us to essentially kind of put an outline
Yes.
specification together, that we can do. We have annotated all the drawings to indicate the materials.
Yeah, it's
But,
hard.
It's really impossible to
Well,
read
you
these.
needed the big set or a jeweler's loop to read it, but that does say red cedar everywhere. That's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just as if you're going to the HGC, I would provide all the information that they asked for on their application.
Yeah, and I would go further, since we're looking at each building individually, but we're looking at the overall as well. So to Lisa's point about color palette, we need some representation of the pattern, I guess, or lack thereof, or whatever. If they're all going to be white and white, or it's just, you need to be basically applying to the HDC.
I was just going to say.
And so we need that
I mean,
info.
that's sort of a slippery slope. I don't think they want to get into like having it look like every third house is white.
No.
Every fourth house has green windows, so.
Yeah, I'm not
Is that up
suggesting a
to sort of
pattern.
the ownership of the people, assuming they can choose from a palette of
Okay.
colors that we approve?
That's another very reasonable suggestion. So we would just say any one of these color schemes is acceptable to us?
I think so. I mean, what I wanted to do was look like it was naturally developed. And so I think you should end up with two houses next to each other that might have the same color, or might have the same trim color, different window color. You know, it needs to not look like it happened overnight.
I
mean,
hear you.
Not that it will be happening overnight, but.
Well, that brings up another point. Do you intend to put up these buildings before selling them, or, as Lisa said, do you think that people will be coming along and choosing?
I'd imagine it would be the combination of both. So our thinking is that there would be phases to the process, and when it comes to the residential cottages, let's say we're doing 10 or 15 in a given year. Some of those may be pre-sold, some of them may not be. So depends
Okay.
depends on the market.
Okay. I think we would you still be comfortable with the color palette,
I think so.
leaving it up to the developer?
Yep, I think so. And I don't think every building should have the same trim. I mean, again, it
say,
wants
yeah.
to look sort of like it got developed over time. You know, I think there has to be, is there a way to, you know, not have every B house have the exact same trim, like vary it every now and then so that,
I think that's a reasonable comment
Yeah.
and a keen
And maybe-
observation, so.
what building is that you're looking at? This one- Oh, you're at type C, okay. One comment on this, and this is, you know, where it goes into aesthetics maybe a little bit more than it should, but on the front elevation, which I think is, as you said, is noted side, I really dislike those windows up above the front door. You know, the two little 9-light windows and the way that dormer crashes into that other gable.
So wait a minute, this is now the front?
That's the front. Right? On A2.1, 1 is the front?
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if that's plan-driven.
Well, yeah, can you explain that? I think I know why it is, but because the house is narrower than it is wide, and so it fits better, if you will, on the narrow.
No, I'm
No?
more talking about these, why these are so small, and the fact.
Well, I'm just talking about the overall design front. I mean, the one that was labeled front looks sort of like the front.
Except, and here I would say, why is the door blocked
Right.
by the column, you know, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what I thought was the front, too, initially, until Chris mentioned that this was the front.
Wait, which one is the front?
A2.1 is the front.
Even though this says front elevation?
Yeah.
Yes. Correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. You know what would really be helpful, I think, is if you took the overall site plan, you color-coded all the As, all the B's a different color, all the C's a different color, and all the D's a different color. So graphically, we could just look up and see how they're spread out.
Yeah.
And then mark the affordable somehow with
Yeah,
a red.
we've already done that with the affordables, so that there's a site plan with the affordables all grayed out, so we can
Yeah.
certainly take it
Yeah.
to that next level.
Again, I just want to see how these are fitting in general next to each other
'Cause
and the
they're-
scale of them. Is there a... Oh, here it is. Oh, no, that's B.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, please? Because I'm confused now. So the type A, sheet A 2.0, where I'm looking at it, that says front elevation and rear elevation, those are actually the side elevations?
That's correct.
Why does it
Yes.
say front and rear?
It's a typo.
Yeah, that's the A.
Well, it's a little, yeah, that wasn't, it's on the first page of the elevations, which would normally be the front, but.
Yeah.
Are we okay with A's front? Doesn't look as
Again,
fronty to me.
I don't like the dormer. I don't like the windows on the dormer. It looks, I mean, I understand the lots are narrow, so they're having to put the narrow side facing the road, but I don't think this is
Yeah, I
architecturally the best, putting your best foot forward.
tend to agree with you. Would you prefer to see more of the gable on the front?
Well, you know, again, I don't,
You don't want every building to look exactly the same.
no, I don't, but I also don't know that I want to get in, we want to get into designing the architecture for them. I think we're just giving.
Isn't that what the HTC does? Just saying.
If I may, Lisa, respond to your comment. I mean, giving us commentary that you are troubled with the shed dormer on the front and the asymmetry of the windows on that second floor, we certainly can address it. I think that's all the information we need. We don't
Okay.
expect you guys to design exactly what should happen there.
Yeah, and I would just pay attention to the proportion of the lights, like the window to the right of the front door, it looks like the lights are horizontal as opposed to more vertically, which is more historically appropriate. You know, they appear in the back. There's no window schedule, but on the A 2.1, the top elevation, that 6/6. Just, you know, little things like that that I think the HGC would look at, is just proportion of glass so that you don't have really tall, skinny panes of glass next to square panes of glass. And we think these will be visible from all four sides, pretty much,
Yeah.
within reason.
Certainly some, maybe not each building, but a B or A will, and A will
Somewhere.
be visible from the back somewhere.
And then one other thought that I had just looking at this is, just for your market rate units, and I'm just curious what the rationale is, knowing that people like outdoor space and covered outdoor space, you have no, you know, I'm not looking at a particular site plan that shows an A, so maybe it's going to be developed differently, but there doesn't seem to be any nice, enjoyable outdoor space, you know, that you can get to from the first floor. You walk out to a very meager deck with the outdoor shower. That seems like not a $2 million house to me, but.
So I just want to jump in for a second. This is the only model that we borrowed from Beach Plum Village as part of swapping out the original model that was presented, and HDC said that they didn't like that taller design. So we pulled this one because it's done great. It's been really well received, and I think it works well in our experience in Beach Plum Village. The one that I did in Beach Plum Village was this. It's called a cedar, is the name of the design in there. And those two back doors open beautifully to an outdoor living space. We did it with outdoor, a dining room table, and then we had a spa, and we had, you know, a nice backyard. And so I would just say programmatically, I really like how this house interfaces with the outdoor living. And that house I sold for, I think, 2.2 something million. So
So there's terraces, no porches. The outdoor
correct.
living space
That's
is
right,
a terrace.
patio.
Okay.
All right, well, the plan we're looking at shows the very small decklet, more like a large stoop. So if that's not what you're intending, we
Well,
shouldn't
I
be
think,
looking
I
at it.
think that would still be there because you need that for code, and then you'd go down to the terrace, is what he's
Just-
saying.
Okay.
It's a step down.
I do think it would be helpful to see a snapshot of each unit and how you see the landscape being developed. And I know Mirka did 2 sketches. I don't know if they were A, B, A or B, or, you know, it just might be helpful to see. And I think being able to look at an overall plan with, again, color-coded where the units are and how they relate to the landscape might be helpful for us to kind of wrap our head around.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
Is this, I don't have the chart in front of me, but is A considered a 3-bedroom that can be added on to, or?
Do you want to answer that?
It has a full basement
So,
with window
so
wells.
I believe it's set up as a 4-bedroom, but I want him just to confirm that that's how these are being finished.
So it's the room, you know,
It is set up as a 3-bedroom at the first floor and the second floor, and the differentiation between a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom will be either adding 1 or 2 bedrooms to the basement level.
So the room to the left of the front door is a study.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at. This plan that I'm looking at least hasn't, the basement is
Unfinished.
unfinished, so that would be a 3-bedroom to me, with a den, which obviously could be another bedroom. So I think the basements, I know it's not an HDC thing, but we're not really acting exactly as the HDC right now. I think we're talking about the plans in general. We need to talk about what we think about the basements. If you're planning to develop them,
We should know.
you need to let us know, because I'm of a mind that, you know, I haven't made up my mind, but it seems to me that one of the expansion areas is an unfinished basement. And that leads to more people, more sewage, more water, more everything. So I would like to be talking about what you really intend to do with the buildings. I know a lot of the other ones, the basements are shown. This one, it isn't. And when we get into talking about bedroom count and that type of thing, it's difficult if we don't have the information.
So we'll provide you with that for this unit, but our intentions are to largely finish all of the basements so that there's not a big unfinished space that could later be converted or create that type of a problem. If we finish it, we include the areaways and the access and all that right from the onset. That's how we want to do it. That also helped us with our program, keeping the cottages smaller, keeping the footprint smaller by counting on that lower level space.
Well, I do think it makes some sense. If the basements are going to be finished, finish them now, we see it, and are okay with it or not.
Yeah,
Right.
that's,
So on this particular plan, we need to see the basement.
we'll provide
layout.
that for you.
I'm just telling Chris.
We have provided you with information about sort of the evolution. It's a matrix that
Yeah.
was presented earlier about, you know, how we're adding, you know, 1 basement bedroom or 2 basement bedrooms to get to the count. So these bedroom counts in the basement are considered in the overall bedroom count for the project.
So this would be a 5-bedroom. This is counted as a 5-bedroom. I don't have the matrix in front of me,
Yeah.
but I did see it.
I do. We would add 2 basement bedrooms to get to a 5-bedroom. We would add 1 basement bedroom to get to a 4-bedroom.
Then what happens to the rest of the basement space?
Right.
Family
We-
room
we-
that has pull-out
we-
sofas, so that's the kind
Likely,
of
we
stuff
need to get you a
see.
plan.
Yes, exactly, because it all adds to density.
I mean, if it can be finished, I'm going to count it as a bedroom. Just keep that in mind. So unless it's really, you know, there are no windows, et cetera, et cetera. So, You're listing only one of the A's as a 5-bedroom. That's a bit, so, just want to be clear. If I'm looking at the matrix correctly.
We are listing 3 type A's as 5 bedrooms and 8 type A's as 4 bedrooms.
Oh, type A mirrored. I'm sorry. What is type A mirrored? It's just flopped?
Yes, that's
Got
correct.
you. I see that now. See that? Type A, 3, 8. Okay, so the bottom line on A is we need to see the basement. You want to keep going on the outside? I mean, I, for one, appreciate some of the detailing that at least is apparent at the first blush, and I do think I agree with Lisa's comment. We don't want to see each and every building have exactly the same trim detail. So again, maybe there can be some reasonable palette of trim details.
Sure.
Okay.
I think that's a good observation. We're, not that we're talking about the condo buildings, but we sort of had that same approach, that we have 3 different condominium buildings that have a different sort of architectural style.
Yeah, let's not go to the condos quite yet. Yeah, we're probably going to get to them, but not right now. Okay, so, I mean, what other details would the HDC be looking at, Lisa? Obviously, the materials,
Right.
color.
Top of foundation, I mean, relative to the grade and any change in grade.
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure that we talked about that last time. I think this part of the site is relatively flat, I believe, but any type of change in grade on the lots, like you would have to put on an HGC application.
Sure, yes.
Well, and/or I think you should demonstrate mathematically that each house meets the average mean height calculation.
Oh, it will. At 28.6?
I don't know.
Unless they're filling 5 or 6 feet.
Okay.
I think they will.
So you're okay with that? You don't want them to prove that?
I think if we know how much they're filling each site, and then we know the height of the building, we should be able to ascertain whether or not they're,
Okay, it's on you to do the math.
well, at 28.6, they can fill 3 feet, and it's 30 feet tall.
Okay. So you get half of what you fill?
Yes.
Okay.
Averaged around all 4 sides. No one side can be more than 32 feet, maybe 34. I can't remember.
I don't know why
think
you
it's
would want to take that burden on, but
Well,
I
think
appreciate it.
I'm assuming that this is relatively flat and that it's going to be easy math.
Well,
Correct. I
Don
think the
has said
condo-
that the lot does slope from side to side.
I thought that
back
was
to
more in
front.
the back, at the condo lots. No.
Sure.
Yeah, when you go across the 3 buildings, there is a drop that's considered when grading all the buildings. But I think, like Lisa said, most of them are going to be pretty easy to verify. The only ones that, may require some math, which we can do if it's close, is maybe one of the condo buildings. Yeah. But when we get to that point.
If
Right.
it's
We're
so
talking about
easy,
height.
if it's so easy, just do it on the houses.
We can give you a
Then
table.
I feel
and show
good.
you-
We've
Yeah.
done our
Okay.
homework. Okay?
That's easy
Thank
enough.
you. All right.
Okay.
What else you got for A?
I don't know. I mean, other than little things like I wish that door was centered on the posts. I mean, these are on the side elevation. The 9-light door walks right out to a post.
Or you could spread the posts out differently,
Yeah,
have
you could,
fewer
I mean, there's
posts.
obviously a way to solve that. Again, I'm not sure how much detail we want to get into, but that
I think
visually
that's-
bothers me.
That's reasonable.
Is it odd that there are no no chimneys on any of the, I'm assuming there are no chimneys on any of these buildings?
Or no what?
Chimneys.
There are no masonry chimneys at present, no.
Is that odd? I mean, I understand why, they're expensive, but it just seems like to have an entire development where there's not one chimney?
Well,
Did you do that at Beach Plum? I'm
we
just
did
curious.
gas fireplaces, so we had basically a sidewall discharge,
Okay.
so.
Maybe it's okay.
Well, again, I don't know to what level the HDC looks at that type of detail, but if it's a sidewall discharge, are you
should know where
supposed
it
to
is.
show that?
Yeah, and where the meter is and all the utilities where they're on the buildings. Because they don't want them facing the road. I think AC units show up someplace, right?
On this particular plan, I did not see AC units.
I thought I saw them on one plan.
You should note where the AC units are going.
Oh, they're on the
Certainly
floor
not the
plans.
front, so either the side or to the rear.
But if it's on a side facing a road, we'd want to know.
And also, HDC looks at hardscaping too. So if there's any hardscaping, that we should look at that, right?
Yeah, is that really a separate, I mean, typically it's a separate application before the HDC.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter because you want us to act as the HDC. So whatever you would apply to the HDC, you need to provide to us. So, I mean, I would like to, I mean, I don't want to make you guys fill out an HDC application for every house, but all of that information that we are all familiar with when we fill out applications for the HDC, all of that should be provided to us so that we can have at an easy glance answers to these questions so that we can move forward.
Understood.
Because otherwise we're having a conversation without all the information. And if you went to the HDC and just had this, it would not be a good situation for you.
So just to try and understand that a little bit better, with all of the various, are you asking for a pretty well fully developed landscape plan for all of these units? Or are you asking for something that's representative of each model and, you know, is going to have some level of flexibility as the houses flip-flop? And
You asking Susan? I mean, I would think representative.
What?
Representative of each model.
Yeah, I mean, but I think you're asking us to sit as the HDC and saying that you don't want to go to the HDC. So you're relying on us to answer all these questions, but you're not providing us the information that is required by the HDC to approve these things. So I would think it would be almost easier for you to just go to the HDC because they're going to be a lot more streamlined at this process than we are. And also, you would have had to provide all this information. So I don't feel prepared to make, besides rudimentary recommendations, but you know, about like the doors in front of a post or whatever. I don't feel like we have all the information today.
but I'm just trying to get some guidance on how to best provide you what you're asking for. So
Well, you must have eventually you have to have an idea of what you're doing on each and every lot, within reason.
we do.
You do, right?
Right.
So why wouldn't you present us with that information? It's
we-
sort of like the height calculation.
We can, but the question is, do you want to see it for every single lot, or do you want to see it as it relates to each model and say, okay, here's kind of a typical landscape, hardscape,
Well, I
know,
think
plan.
to each model is okay, but I guess the change is that if it's like an A and somebody buys it and they want a hot tub or a spa, and you haven't originally shown that in the plan, then that's
We'd
a
have to-
change to the comprehensive permit.
That's right. And Chairman Toole had already asked for a submission showing each place that we intend to do that from the onset. So we'll do that, and we'll, hopefully that'll be part of a comprehensive permit, and then if we change, then we'd be back in front of you for that.
Well, so I was just leading to the point of if the landscape changes dramatically from this model, then that would be something that maybe somebody might have concern with. So that's the beauty of giving it for each lot. It's just then it's very clear, you know exactly what you're doing. You've gotten approval for exactly, what you think you're doing, and there's no gray area.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
I brought this up last meeting, and considering the sensitive area that we're dealing with here, I want to make sure that the landscape is natural, it's native, non-invasive. So to me, I want to see something little more than just each lot or each type of lot. I'd like to see what the boundary is going to look like, and also around the condos and everything else. So to me, I would like to see a landscape plan and with what you plan to plant.
I think that makes sense in terms of the native vegetation and being clear about what's going in the buffer.
Yeah, I for one am not as concerned about getting into the specific plant life around the buildings as much as a plan of what's going on. The buffer is a different issue.
Well, I think the nice thing about the plants around the building is if every lot is trimmed in privet hedge, it just changes the sort of feeling of that neighborhood. It's sort of, it's a naturally vegetated area right now, and that would change it significantly. So that's the only reason I would be interested in the plant list.
Okay. We can talk about it when we have a list.
Yeah, okay.
Because I mean, it's natural now, but it's certainly going to look different with.
I know, but the goal would be to get it back to as natural as we can.
Okay, is that your what do you have a landscape design intent in mind?
There were a couple plans last week.
I know.
We do, and we've submitted those 2 samples, and we've submitted a landscape general plan, but it is in keeping with what we're talking about here. And right now we're not envisioning a lot of hedges or any hedges really.
Okay.
So we'll look forward to developing
Okay.
these and getting back to you with them.
Thank you.
Speaking of no hedges, how about fencing? I think that's a question of, a thoughtful approach, and you don't want everybody to be putting up a split wall fence between their lots. And so,
Right.
getting a plan about what's going to be allowed for fencing and would be important as well.
Okay.
If I could just make a request, I think it makes sense to look at every lot and to have the comprehensive information that you're asking for. If we could get some feedback on some of the samples that we've given you before we do 60 of the same thing and then find out that there's something in all of them that you don't like and we want to change, and then we have to change 60 instead of the first few.
Do you have
So-
them, and you can put them on the screen? Just the 2 samples that we saw last week?
I think it was in the one previous to that.
Previous
Yeah,
to
it
that?
wasn't last week.
Does he have it? Does Roland have it?
Yeah, that wasn't part of what's on our USB chip.
So
but
maybe you can bring
you
that
do have 'em,
for
and
the
we can-
next meeting so that we can look at
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Okay. Let's do are we good with A for now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah.
Well, I had a comment on A, and again, I'm not an architect, but the dormers, I'd like to. The shed dormers, the 4-pitch seems off, it just seems funky to me. Don't you think that's...
What do you mean as seen from the side because they're so
Yeah,
short?
seen from the side
Well,
and
it's
from the
because-
front as well, because it...
Is it because the roof pitch is
I-
so,
But why wouldn't you bring it up a little bit more on the roof, just to give it a little bit more presence?
oh, you mean just to make it like a 6-pitch?
Right.
Yeah, could do that.
Just so there's a little bit...
That doesn't look
the
like a
break is a
little-
little higher and...
Sure. I mean, intuitively, I typically think of a shed dormer as a 4 and 12 pitch, so.
What are
but
the main roof pitches? Again, we can't see these drawings very.
I can, it's 9.
Okay.
And I had a question about, there are no attics in these buildings, correct?
That's correct.
So what is the thought behind the
Well,
the
may
windows in the
I
gable?
sort of rephrase that? There is attic there, but it could not be habitable attic space. There's not sufficient headroom. You're looking at a gable window there, correct?
I am.
Yeah.
What is the headroom?
I know that window head there is less than 6'8". So I think that if you, because I looked at it recently, and if you went to the underside of the ridge board, it was probably about 8 to 7 feet there. You can't convert that to habitable space.
Well, you can't convert it,
It's a legal habitable space, but
Legally.
you can make it a loft.
so.
Yeah, I have one in my house. I mean, it's got storage, you know, it's like a,
Yours is legal, I assume.
no, it's not habitable space, but it can be fitted.
Well, I mean, the overall height of the, yeah, I think that's an important question. If somehow it could be made habitable, even if it's not 100% legal, that would be a problem. Well, not necessarily a problem, but we'd want to know that now.
So the way this particular model right now has a hatch in a laundry room, and that's the access point up into the space, and it's not a space that I could imagine ever being converted, but I suppose somebody could. We've been building with air handlers up there, and so, I mean, it's basically a utility space.
Do you need the windows
Well, I
aesthetically?
think they add, I think
Yeah.
something up there, maybe it doesn't have to be that big. I don't know. I think if that wasn't there, it'd be very blank.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
windows
There's one
that,
on the other end too.
the
Yeah.
windows that we build with, for example, are fixed windows, just because there's no reason for it to be operable.
Okay, well, that says TW, which I assume is tilt wash. So just label it as fixed. Bill.
Can I ask the ceiling heights on the first floor?
I think it's around 8 feet. I don't have a section on this right here.
Or do you want to get into that in terms of the section and whatnot?
If you go to the next page, they have elevation marks. First floor, 32.54, 42 point, so that's 7.5 feet? That can't be right.
No, it's
Oh,
not.
no, sorry. You don't want me to do my calculations.
If you're
9.5 feet, so they're 8.5-foot high ceilings.
If you're interested, I can pull out my scale, and we can scale these drawings.
No, it says plus 10.5 feet.
Plus 10.5 from zero, which is down
from
here.
zero, okay.
So it's 9.5 feet
9.5, so
minus
it's an 8'6"
the joist.
ceiling.
Why is it so far? Why is it seems a little high out of the ground. This looks like more than 8 inches to me.
It is. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 28 inches, maybe. 27, 8, 12, 6.
It seems, I mean, are we okay with that? I guess if the overall height is, I would just think you'd want it a little lower. Why would you want to be that far out of the ground? I'd take
Well,
a,
there's no view.
I think we're going to try and use our best efforts to essentially build the code where essentially the butt end of the shingles, just above the foundation, will be 6 inches, 8 inches or so above grade.
So it'll
Yeah.
be more like 20 inches from grade to
Yeah.
finished floor.
well, I would just, again, these drawings should reflect that is all I'm getting.
See, look, what they're showing here, though, is that the grade is dropping off towards the back. So it might start out, oh, that's still
I see what
high.
you're saying.
Yeah, but,
No,
There'll
it's
be
not,
some
no, this is
variation.
roughly 8 inches.
yeah, so it'll vary around the
So it
building.
might be a grade issue that I'm looking at. Okay. You know, other than getting into the
The
minutia.
one HGC member in particular really dislikes casement windows. So I would probably suggest you not having a ton of them on the front of the building like this currently has on A.
This,
They're awnings, actually, but,
same idea.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really read to me as the front, but you say you've used this successfully over at Beach Plum? Maybe I'll go take a look.
That's correct, yeah.
And is it apparent Beach Plum is a little different in terms of its layout? Sometimes you can't tell where front is and where back is.
If you look at 3 Wood Lily, for example, it's very representative
Wood
of what
Lily.
we're trying to do
I'll
here.
go take a look. Thank you.
What's this
And that-
little,
And that front's right, sorry, Lisa, that front's right on the road, so it'll be very obvious how to.
The second floor through the laundry room, there's a little square room with a window. What is that?
Yeah, that's another room.
Is-
It's a very, it's,
They call that's been used as an office, little office off the laundry room, or sometimes set up as like a dry storage.
I think we're gonna have to put on our, sort of Board of Health, count the rooms in the building kind of thing. If there are a lot of extra rooms, like the den, the office, an extra room in the basement, those can easily be construed as bedrooms. Just keep it in mind.
I mean, they don't have a septic issue, but I think
No,
what we're
I'm not-
saying is we'll interpret them as potentially habitable bedrooms, using the Board of Health count.
Only from the standpoint of how many bedrooms are on this piece of property.
Right. And how many people you could have in this house, and what that does to the density.
I mean, I'm not suggesting a solution to this little odd room, but, again, it's...
It looks like it's big enough you could put a twin bed in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looks like it to me.
This all speaks to the housing problem on Nantucket, right? I mean, there are going to be rooms that are used other than bedroom, right? So TV room, perhaps a little office space, a gym. What would you like us to do to identify it, or, I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, I'm trying to understand too. We're trying to understand what's going on and what might go on in the buildings. And I hear you about, I mean, I have extra rooms in my house. There aren't a lot of people in them. So I'm not saying everybody does that, but we are talking about the number of human beings in an area. And if there are a lot of ancillary or extra rooms, it does happen that all of a sudden the 4-bedroom becomes a 5-bedroom, or so just bringing it up.
Yeah. We had thought that when we finished with a accepted plan, that each building would have an assigned number of maximum bedrooms allowed, and that would be a covenant and a restriction issue. There's maybe an enforcement aspect of that, but we have that, at Beach Plum, for example, we have this exact unit with this exact little office room. It's not counted as a bedroom. It's generally in a 3-bedroom house. If it's being used differently from that, it's a violation.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a point of order? I feel like we don't have a complete set of plans, and we should maybe wait. I'm sorry, point of order that we should maybe wait till there's a complete set of plans where they can answer all of your questions. I feel like you're asking a lot of great questions they don't know the answers to. So if we could postpone until they have those answers?
Well, I think it's helpful to go through that to let them know what the information is that we would like them to provide for us.
At the last meeting, you guys asked for a couple things that haven't been provided in
Like
these
what?
plans. Like the elevations, for example.
We have the
Do you
elevations.
have the elevations? Okay.
We have the elevations.
I'm not used to looking at plans, so maybe I
Yeah.
missed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think, as Lisa said, I think it's helpful to the process to identify things that we think are deficient or that we need more information on. So I think we're going to continue the process. Did you want to say something about that, Jill?
Well, I just wondered if they'd put down how many bedrooms, because at this rate with the 60 houses, you have your 3-bedroom model, which can really be 5-bedroom. It sounds maybe it could be 6. So at that's 600 people going up to 820 people. That's just the houses. I think there are only 250 parking spots or something.
Well, that's why we're trying to get more clarity
Yeah,
on
I'm
this.
just,
so that,
that's what I'm saying. I just
Yeah.
hope that they would put down exactly
right.
you
Because
know,
that
what that is.
And I think there is a well-established standard in Title V on counting number of bedrooms when you have a house with 8 rooms or more total, and you count the number of habitable rooms, divide by 2, and round down. We can certainly do that for each model once we have all the floor plans
I
complete.
think it makes some sense.
right.
Can I just ask one more thing?
Sure.
On the, Air conditioning and heat, will all houses and condos have central air conditioning and central heat?
Yes.
Okay, because as my understanding in Beach Plum, the affordable
We're not talking
units
about
don't
Beach
have-
Plum, though. If they said yes,
But the affordable
that was
units
the
don't
answer.
have AC in Beach Plum. So, and I'm just saying,
But you asked if all the units had it, and he said yes.
okay, but I'm making the point
So
that
that
was
would
it.
include
They're
the
using Beach Plum
affordables.
is what I'm saying is they're
But
using.
we're not talking about Beach Plum, though.
But they're using it, if their house is right there. That's all I'm saying. That's their comparison.
Well, I think it's a good thing for her to clarify. She's just bringing up, yeah. Making sure that they all
If the question
have.
is asked and answered, and the answer is yes, I don't,
That's
Wow.
fine.
if the affordable units at some point are determined to not have central air, that would be a problem.
Right. I agree. Okay, do you want to go on to B?
Sure. Turn some pages.
We're going to B. One.
Mr. Chairman, may I just provide a broad overview on the B, the differentiation between the B and the BA?
Sure.
Probably easiest if you look at your first floor plan. On the B, type B, there's a den, rather smallish den that's up in the upper right-hand corner. And if you go to the type BA, that den does not exist.
Right.
Right.
Okay, do you want to stick with, should we do B first,
Yeah.
the regular B? So again, I appreciate the varying window types, and I think within each, maybe you didn't do this at Beach Plum, but within each type, did you guys vary the windows within each type?
We did.
Okay, that would be helpful.
So you're talking about the 2/2s instead of 6/6s kind of thing?
Yeah, and maybe, you know, if you have two Bs on the same block, one has 2/2s, one has 6/1s, or something that makes it appear to be a little bit more organic.
All right, but again, I
It'd be
don't
nice to
know
know.
that's a, is that a palette thing too? Pick and choose?
Well, I don't know. That might be more specific, only because I know the HGC would be concerned about probably this building. Maybe with 6/6s might not look as appropriate. So I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't have the answer to that question either. I'm deferring to you in large measure. If you, I mean, again, that's sort of why I think in
Well, how was it done at Beach Plum? You guys approved
let's get off Beach Plum.
Well, no, I'm just because I wasn't involved.
I know, but I mean, it's a slippery slope, in my opinion.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about this development.
No, I know. I was just curious, so if they had the cedar in Beach Plum, how did they determine what the windows were going to be? Was it per client, or was it you guys just decided?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In Beach Plum Village, if you built 5 cedars, do they all have the same windows?
No.
And how did you determine the window type?
You know, we maintained a site plan, and we basically, in the interest of creating variety, we looked at adjacencies in terms of color and window pattern primarily, so that we didn't have common window pattern 6/6 by 6/6 by 6/6 all adjacent to one another. So we worked, and I think we had approval from the ZBA to essentially administer it ourselves, one color and window pattern, and just to break it up. And that's how that project evolved.
So that did not go to the HGC, unlike Sagem's Path, who... You didn't sit on Beach Plum?
Thankfully, no.
Oh, I thought you did.
No. I've been here a while, but I skipped that one.
Oh.
No.
Well, I mean, if it...
I mean, we can look it up. We can look it up how that was administered, quote unquote. But again, just because they did it one way doesn't mean we have to.
Well, I'm just thinking that if it was successful there, you know, that's a good model.
Yeah. I-
And so,
So what did we decide about the windows? We're going to,
I think we'll leave it to them to come up with some plan as to how they might vary the window types based on the architecture, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily put a 6/6 in a B necessarily, or would you? I mean, I think if you give us some parameters of what this building would look like with the 3 different window types you might put in it, and then we can see it.
I think it's an interesting question. I mean, we haven't looked at it with 6/6 at this point, but I think it's a reasonable exercise for us to go through to establish what are perhaps acceptable aesthetically window
Right.
patterns on each type.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of the rear elevation of this building, but, you know, I don't know if I'm alone with that. The way that this sunroom or the den cuts off under again, the tiny windows. I wish that porch went all the way across. I think it would be a much more attractive piece of building.
so you're saying run the porch roof through and then that other big window
Yeah,
becomes a small
or at least
window?
run it to cover maybe over the door so that it's not hitting, it just seems to be hitting in a haphazard place on that elevation.
Can I ask what you're asking, just for me?
Just if this roof line were to go through?
Oh, yeah.
Go through or to at least come to
Even.
here and there is a little bit better. Just the fact that it's stopping sort of willy-nilly under this very large dormer. The dormers just feel very heavy.
And then are you talking about this you want continued?
No, that's I think a mass.
That's the sunroom?
No, this is
That's,
Oh.
Chris, did you have something to say to that?
I just wanted to have an understanding what Lisa was trying to say. I wondered if I could approach.
Or do we have a pointer? Okay. Thanks.
So what I was suggesting, Chris, was I didn't like, sorry, the way that this roof just ends here. It seems like an awkward transition and allows for this a very large flat dormer. I would say that that's one of the things that troubles me about some of the architecture is that you end up with these flush dormers, they're not set back, and you have very tall walls of shingle that aren't broken up.
So Lisa, were you suggesting to extend essentially that roof over
Either
the
you could
den?
extend this porch all the way across, or you could extend it to maybe to at least capture the door so that it's not hitting sort of just half under this window.
So in a sense, not unlike what happens on the front elevation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the issue being that you need, you know, your windows are going to have to get smaller because that mass is so much deeper than the front.
What is that window upstairs?
That window
little
upstairs is a
bathroom.
bathroom.
So
You
that-
probably don't want a big window behind the toilet anyway. So it might be a positive. So.
Yeah, this, you're not, I mean, are we concerned about is that what you were talking about with the dormers being large and flat?
Well, it was basically this wall, you know, this, am I doing this one again? This
Yeah.
entire flat wall of shingles. Yeah. If you go to the affordable, it's worse because you don't have the den.
You don't know the sun, or the,
Yeah, the sunroom or den. And it, you know, looks like the dormers are meeting the HGC required setback of 3 feet on either side, but it just makes for a very heavy elevation if you want to. Can you scroll to B, A? Yeah. No, that's perfect. Maybe a pergola, something to cut it up, or, you know, just something to add to bring the height down visually.
Okay. understood.
And so these, B, let's see, I gotta get back to my plans. B has one basement bedroom, big family room. And BA, what's the difference in terms of depth of basement between the affordables and the market rate?
When you say depth of basement, do
The
you mean the
pour.
ceiling height?
Well, the foundation wall you're gonna pour.
I presume it's going to be the same, but we haven't gotten to that level of detail just yet.
Well, the reason I'm asking, because it's much easier to develop a pour that's 9 feet deep or 10 feet deep versus 8 feet deep
Right.
into habitable space, so I'd be curious about that.
So again, just to be clear, on the affordable units, you do not intend to develop the space in the basements?
Okay, you got it?
And this was in some of the material we submitted earlier, but BA, we're on BA, correct? So it's a
Yes.
3-bedroom at the first and second floors, and to make it a 4-bedroom, we're adding a basement bedroom,
Okay.
okay?
Do we have that plan?
Yep, it's on the B plan, shows the basement bedroom, that's right.
Okay, so the BA 4-bedroom just becomes a B, if you will.
No, the BA does not have the basement developed. The BA is just 3 bedrooms.
No, well, that was my question. So the BA is not, the basement is not being developed?
Although it shows a window well.
Now, we have, there are 2 BAs that are 3-bedroom, and there are 2 BAs that are 4-bedrooms.
All right, what I
Those-
would love to do is, BA 3-bedroom and BA 4-bedroom are different animals to me.
They should be different types.
So they should be a different, we can add more letters, so it's clearer.
Or BA 3 versus BA 4.
Yeah, 'cause it's very
maybe
hard
that's
for
what-
me to I
that's
can
what
go
we should
back to
do
your
is
matrix,
identify-
I can go here, I can go there. I like to look at the plan and know what we're talking about.
Right.
So right off the bat, if we say BA3, you know it's a 3-bedroom unit. If we say BA4, it's a 4-bedroom
Right.
unit. So
And it, yeah, for all the units.
So,
And Ed, you had asked for basement access to all the units from the exterior.
It troubles me that the, some of the affordable units don't have any access to the basement from outside. Not necessarily saying it has to be walked down, but I think at a bare minimum, you have to have a bulkhead. And if you have a bulkhead, you're not that far from the walk down.
We'll make some changes on that before we come back.
Thank you.
Sir?
can I ask a question about the BA 3 or 4 and B? So, my microphone is switching. This one. So we don't have, obviously we don't have it, but the unfinished basement for BA has the larger space for mechanical, and that where there was a bathroom for the B. So there'll be no, in the affordable units, no bathroom in the basement, but just a bedroom for the B4, BA4?
the BA4 would have a bedroom and a bathroom downstairs.
Okay. So will it have,
Will it have a
will
family
it have the
room?
family room? So will it look the same, like the family room, the bedroom, the bathroom, and then the mechanical will be smaller? Then,
Yes, yes.
and then, so then why does the mechanical have to be so big for just the BA 3? Can you split that up into storage or something? Like, it's going to be a smaller house, it doesn't need a larger mechanical area.
That's exactly right. So in a big mechanical room like that, that's not heated necessarily, it doesn't have HVAC, it does end up being kind of a hybrid storage area. And I think that was our thinking on creating a big utility room for this house. It certainly doesn't need all to be utility.
Okay, so it's going to remain that big, but it'll be mechanical/storage.
Yep.
In the ones that are going to be BA3s, where the basement's not going to be developed, should we not have full-height windows that allow for egress?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
If it's not going to be
if
developed,
it's
we
not
don't need
going to
it.
be developed, it needs to be made undevelopable.
Building code, I believe, requires any basement to have emergency egress.
Only if it's developed space.
No, I think any basement, I mean, we
Well,
certainly
the
look.
Well-
bulkhead would suffice.
Right, and
Or the
the
walk down.
interior stair, too, would be the other.
Yeah, that's between you guys. The bottom line is, I'm fairly conversant with plans and whatnot, and I'm sure it's hard for some people to follow all this BA 3, 4, et cetera. So we need the plans that show each unit, so that we can say, okay, that's a A4, and there are 3 of them, or whatever. It's just very confusing trying to take these plans and extrapolate what the basement looks like in the affordable units. So just get us the plan, okay? That would be next.
Sure. Fair enough, and we'll do a better job identifying in the basement what is finished and what is not finished. But again, our intention is to finish most of these spaces, so they're not big, open, unfinished areas.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Just want to see it. Did you have something to say about?
Yes, just a general question. Is it the legal opinion of your board that the developers do not have an obligation to go to the HDC? Is that a... because
Well,
you're-
first of all, we're not going to render a legal opinion, the
Yeah,
board, that is.
but why don't you require them to go to the HDC?
George, you want to field this one?
It's a comprehensive permit procedure, so, the meaning of that is you're acting as all local boards subject to the procedure. So you're sort of a super permitting authority as to local boards with local jurisdiction. So you have a historic district commission, but they qualify as a local board subject to the comprehensive permit procedure. You're going to act in their shoes, just like you're doing for water and sewer. I would say, and I'm somewhat confused myself over what the developer intends to do. Typically it is very helpful, especially in a situation where you have a historic district commission. The entire island is subject to their jurisdiction, and they do specialize in these design and setting issues. Typically what I would see would be the developer, as part of this comprehensive permit process, they would go before that board. Not that you're deferring your jurisdiction over and requiring them to get the local permit, because you are that board, that's your jurisdiction. But it is helpful to have the applicant go before that local board and, present their plans, and you get the input from the local board that then you're acting, you're exercising their jurisdiction. But it's certainly helpful as part of the process for them to be going to the HDC, and then the HDC giving you specific recommendations. Just like tonight's packet, you have a letter with input from the planning board. Again, they don't get to exercise their own jurisdiction over it, but you're acting under all these local authorities, and it's helpful to get the input from these various boards. So you can't require them. You can't require them to seek a certificate of appropriateness and defer your jurisdiction on it. But you can certainly encourage them to go before that local board and get the local board's input.
Yeah, we have encouraged them, and I think I heard tonight that you are going on Thursday of next week.
Correct.
And maybe we'll even get a chance to modify these plans with our comments. Who knows, the HDC may decide our comments are no good, but
Right.
yeah, so at least on this portion of the project.
Right. We are planning to go to the HGC for their advice. We have done so a while ago, and in fact, we got feedback from them, which resulted in getting rid of that cottage A type and changing it, for example. But otherwise, we agree, and what we're trying to do is consistent with what Mr. Pucci just described.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I had the general court put some language into the HDC Act
Could you
that
please state your name?
Paul Durensis. I had the general court put some language in the HDC Act that would lead to a different result than what was just stated by town council. The historic nature of Nantucket is defined as a national interest, and that the preservation of the history of Nantucket is not a local issue, it's a national issue. And I think eventually a Superior Court's going to decide this issue, but I want to say for the record that there is some difference in opinion on that subject.
Thank you.
So just one general point about it. Whatever the legal decision is, don't you have the power to ask them to get an informal opinion from the HDC, even if it's not a legal opinion?
We have asked repeatedly. We've asked them to go to the HTC. They said they don't want to. They just said tonight they're going to the HTC next week. So it seems to be in process. If Mr. Durensis is correct, I'm certainly happy. I don't want to speak for the board to defer our. Can we do that? I know we can't until this matter has been decided.
You can't.
Right.
No, there are local boards subject to the comprehensive permit procedure. I don't know what they put in the act or any other talk about hypothetical Superior Court decisions, but you may want to read a Supreme Judicial Court decision from a few years back that I handled myself, and it had to do with the Old Kings Highway Historic District Commission. There are local boards subject to your procedure, and however, I don't know about some hypothetical ruling, but right now you would be overturned if you were to defer your jurisdiction to the HDC. And that's not to say, again, that as part of the comprehensive permit procedure, the developer shouldn't go before them and have them provide recommendations to you.
Yeah, I think in the past when applicants have gone to the HDC, it was not a deferral of our jurisdiction. It was simply to basically go through the entire process with the HDC, and we would accept what they came up with, but we ultimately made the finding, ruling, whatever. So, okay, we're going to move on off this subject. Okay, C. Do you have anything to say about C, Chris?
Well, like B, where there was a den in the type B and it was eliminated on the BA, on C, you'll see on the first floor plan there's a rear living area, which is part of C. On CA, that is eliminated so that the primary living area is essentially in the main mass of the house.
Okay.
Right.
Just a point also that when we're talking about B and BA, C, CA, they all share the same overall building heights. In other words, the B and the BA have the same overall building height. The C and the CA have the same
Right.
overall building height.
Understood.
All right. The C is a good example of something we should at least discuss, not so much on an HDC basis, but there is a difference between the C and the CA. The
Huge difference.
notion that they're equal, they just aren't. I'm not saying that's a huge problem, but it's something we should certainly discuss. And ultimately, I think more math needs to be done. I did it quickly on the matrix, and the square footage of the affordable units does not appear to be 25% of the overall. So that discrepancy will have to be rectified somehow, as they are now. Again, I may have been doing the math incorrectly, but every one of the, not every one, but many of the differences between the C, the B we just looked at, is a portion of the market rate building is lopped off.
Right, but this one is a huge wing that's 23 or 20, I can't read that.
I can't read it either.
23 by
I think it's
14?
331 square feet.
Right.
By
if I recall.
1311 on the width.
Yeah.
Call it 14 feet.
Right.
So anyway, it's something that we need to determine, is that
That's a different unit.
it's definitely a different unit, and that's why I think
Yeah, I think
the
that's a good point.
appellations of A, B, C, A, B, they all should have a different, because they're not the same building. They don't look the same outside. They're not the same inside, so. And/or we have to determine, the buildings are, the affordable units are meant to be indistinguishable from the market rate.
Right.
So the reason I think these buildings need to be identified differently is because they're just not the same building. So, and again, then we get into the math, and the number of bedrooms needs to be 25%. The number of, the overall square footage of the units has to be 25%, in my opinion. So we can get
I
to
think
that.
that's a good point.
All right, let's talk architecture.
Well, I think on the architecture, I would have the same comments. I mean, I just think that the rear dormer is huge. There's no reason it has to have a minimum setback of 3 feet on either side. It looks like in the plan that could be pulled in dramatically so that the dormer was much smaller. You could almost, it looks like, drop this eave a little bit and get the eave to run straight through and have that dormer become an inset dormer, which I think would make a huge improvement on this design. I mean, it looks pretty close, doesn't it?
I had to look in the big ones.
Let's see. I mean, if you pull that, I mean, it's right at the sill height of those.
Yeah, I think anytime
over
you
two
can
windows.
get the dormer to be inset, it's going to be a heck of a lot more attractive.
Yeah, and I was just commenting on the setback off the 3-foot setback on either side. If you look at the floor plan, there's lots of room to make that dormer.
Now
you
again,
know,
to further
considerably
confuse
smaller.
this, you're looking at CA.
Yeah, but C has, no, I'm looking at C. It's the same. It's the
Okay.
same mass. It's the same issue on both of them.
Yeah.
Is that clear enough?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other elevations look.
The other elevations are fine. I mean, the side of, the side of the, I guess they're both the same. Looks a little over fenestrated on the first floor, but it has 6 windows all the way across that one elevation. I sound like I'm from the HDC now, but.
Lisa, what elevation are you referring to?
Well, it's just referred, it's called the side, and it has a porch on the right side, and then the living room to the left. It's just all those windows in the main gable on the first floor.
This one right here. Lower left?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
thank
just seems heavily fenestrated. I mean, the basement of C can almost be a whole separate apartment down there. It's big enough.
Yeah.
Not that it would be, but, I mean, it's,
Well, CA becomes a 4-bedroom, and
So it could be 6-bedroom. Look at that. Look at this common area.
well, these don't. There's no windows here, so they certainly wouldn't be illegal. We cannot. If people want to do illegal things, it's hard to. You can't do it. You can't put a bedroom down there. Certainly not with a building permit. Any other comments about C? CA, when we're still on that, has a exterior access to the basement. I don't know what distinguished it, but. Yeah, why did you, I'm curious, why did this one have exterior access and not the others?
I can't give you a specific answer to that, other than we want them to be on all of them, so we're gonna get it.
So we don't have to talk about it. Thank you.
It certainly looks like you could get some square footage out of that rear L on C, on regular C. It's really long.
Question for you, Lisa. If we eliminated some amount, a significant amount of that square footage, do you feel that we're getting closer to being comparable with the A, the affordable?
With the CA?
Yes.
Well, I think Ed was saying it can only be 25% smaller.
No.
No?
I'm saying that, let's say, I don't have the matrix in front of me, but for ease of math, the overall square footage of this single-family homes is 100,000 square feet.
Oh, so you're saying the total square footage of all the A's.
All the affordables then have to total 25,000.
Got it. Got it.
In my opinion.
Right, but I was mainly looking at the difference between the C and the CA.
Well, yeah,
It doesn't really matter, right? Well,
that's, I think, part of the rub of saying these are the same unit,
Right,
even
'cause
though
they're
they're
not.
not.
They're
They're
not the same.
significantly different. So I don't think they have to be the same unit.
right, they should just be,
They just have to be relatively, well, not relatively, they have to be indistinguishable. If
if they are the same unit, they have to be indistinguishable. This way, they should just call this a D or a G.
it should be
because-
a G. This is a different building, which is okay.
Is this the matrix you wanted to look at?
Yeah, so there's 94,000 square feet of overall square footage. Is that what that says?
It says total affordable total square footage for affordable and year-round cottages is 94,100.
Right. And so I don't have a calculator with me, but 25% of that number, I believe, I have it written down, is roughly 24,000, which is higher than the 21,000, I'm rounding, that is currently on the matrix. So what I'm saying to the developer is you need to just look at that and make sure those numbers work. You could easily take 2 more market rate units if the difference is roughly 3,500 square feet and make them affordable, or you have to make some design changes. Assuming the board agrees with me. I'm not saying you have to, by the
And
way.
one other thing is we had made mention that one lot on the site plan was not a great affordable lot.
Right.
The one on the corner, so I think that should be addressed.
Which was a C, I think, which is the
The
smallest.
smallest thing.
one.
Yeah. Do you know which one we mean? It's on the top of the development, and it's right on that curve, and because it's on the curve, it has really no usable area. Well, at the last meeting, we both, Ed and I, talked about that we didn't think that was an appropriate, affordable
Okay.
lot.
The lot's funky. It's when you come in the main road, you get to the end before the condo area, and you take the corner.
Here it is,
What's the number of it?
Lot 7, yeah. Thank you, Marianne.
Okay. And by the way, those calculations, in my opinion, also pertain to number of bedrooms. 25% of the bedrooms of the overall bedrooms have to be in the affordable units. It's not just 25 units. Okay.
Yeah.
We good with this one
I think so.
for now?
Yep.
All right,
Mr. Chairman,
so-
if I can just respond on this 25% of the bedrooms and the square footage. That is not what's in our plan. And so that is something we need to think about and figure out how to discuss with you and see whether we can come to an agreement or not. I'm not, but those would both be changes from what we've proposed. They're different from what we discussed, for example, with Mass Housing. We had a whole conversation with them about the unit mix because there are 5-bedroom market rate homes, for example, and there are no 5-bedroom affordable homes. And we thought good reasons for that. They seemed persuaded by that. I'm not saying that we wouldn't change or that we can't come to some kind of an agreement on where this goes with the board, but that should be flagged as an issue where our proposal is definitely different from what you're describing.
Okay. I did do the math. The unit count is 25%. You're saying in your mind that's sufficient. Yes. Then, I mean, in that, using that math, you could have 20, let's say you had 100 units, you could have 25 studios. That is not fair and equitable. So I don't know how else to look at it other than number of bedrooms. Unit count, of course, is one metric, but then the square footage is really, and the number of bedrooms speaks to the fair and equitable issue. So, it didn't seem to me, again, I didn't drill down for hours, but it wasn't off by a huge factor. It was just off. I'm not saying that's what you were proposing. I'm saying using that logic, you could. So all I'm saying is that I think a better metric is the overall size. I mean, there are many ways you can make that math work.
Do you guys know what it is? I mean, what these figures are?
Well, I have them written down. I mean, I can go over the math.
I mean, how far? You're saying it's not that far apart. I'm just curious.
Well, I just read it. It was. Again, I don't.
The overall, the 94. What about the bedrooms?
Are these yours or mine? Those are yours.
Those are mine. Sorry.
It'll take me a minute. It was roughly.
Number of bedrooms and things like that.
I have it written down. Hold on.
Here, should I move these?
Oh, I think I have it.
Did you take my packet?
I don't think
Ed, can I say something while you're looking?
Please.
Dave Iverson, South Shore Road. I'm looking at these plans. It's just concerning that it's following a pattern that these guys have shown. When they reduced the size of the condominiums units, yeah, they reduced the amount of units, but the bedrooms didn't proportionally reduce either. And looking at these plans, it seems like there's hidden bedrooms everywhere. I mean, yeah, it's a living room today or an office tomorrow, but it's going to be a bedroom. And then we're already down to, 244 parking spaces, which is woefully inadequate. So it's suspicious. Thank you.
Okay. Susan took my packet and won't give it back, so. I don't know where my calculations are, but somebody can do that math.
5% of 94.1 is 23,535.
Right, and 20 minus,
21 and change.
right.
And what about the number of bedrooms between the two?
I had that too, but
Well, I didn't steal your pen.
I know you didn't, I'm kidding.
Is it right behind you? You put it behind you. You put it behind you. I remember seeing you put it behind you. Remember?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why you get the big bucks. Still gonna take me a minute. Talk about the sheds. No, I don't think we need to do the math. The developer has said he's, they're gonna look at it and/or it may be a problem. But I'm simply saying that it should be looked at. I'll find it in the course of the evening.
I just want to look at it. I don't care if we talk about it. I'm curious.
Ed?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sean Perry, South Shore Road. Could the developer give the numbers for the number of affordable bedrooms versus number of market rate?
Right. Do you guys have that information? Is it on your matrix?
Yeah, I have.
I have some.
Here.
I mean, by my math, there was 165 total bedrooms. Somebody with a calculator could do the 25% of that.
123, I think.
Is 25%?
No. No, 41 is...
41.25.
Is 25%.
And there aren't 41.25 affordable bedrooms.
How many
there
are there?
35.
35.
So,
It's not
I
that
mean,
far.
it's, you know, we're not talking about
Seems like
100
it's
bedrooms
something you could
here.
get to.
That's off by roughly about 12%. 41.25 versus 35. Close to 12%, sorry. Not exactly.
Yeah. That's not really the point, the variance. The point is that we need to look at this issue.
Yeah.
It's how I interpret the 25%. And if I'm wrong, which is fine, somebody just needs to prove that to us.
Thank you.
Assuming the rest of the board agrees.
Well, it certainly doesn't seem, with 6 bedrooms, is uneconomic. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like it doesn't seem that far off. So if you guys can look at that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, and quite frankly, before we get too far afield on this, the numbers may change. I mean, we may not be at the number. So let's not get stuck here. I'm simply saying when it comes down to the final situation, that's what I think needs to happen.
So we'll look forward to a continued discussion on this, but what I would say is when we went up to Mass Housing for our pre-application meeting and met with those guys, we did talk about the market rate houses being 4 and 5 bedroom and the affordable being 3 and 4 bedroom based on what feedback we had gotten for the market. And so that's where that's coming from. We can do 5 bedroom affordable homes if that's the right thing to do. They would be at a higher AMI price, but you know, so we're open to discussion on this, but it's been on the table and in the applications from the very beginning. So
Yeah, and I'm not saying we're trying to sneak something by. I'm just saying I did the math. So
Exactly.
we need to look at it. So the other solution is there are no 5 bedrooms. So there are solutions out there. Anyway, let's not get stuck on it.
And will we look at the cottages separate from the condos? Or we're going to lump it all in?
That was the total.
That was the total, I know.
So, as I said, it's sort of like we don't have to, I don't want to dwell on it.
Okay, fine.
So Ed, one other way to frame this, the way I'm looking at it, is more affordable units. So I know there's probably a need for 4 bedroom and 5 bedroom. I don't know what the market analysis is. But my take would be more on the number of units. So if you take 4 bedroom and get 2 bedrooms and increase the number of affordable units, I'd rather see that, even if the square footage doesn't, or number of bedrooms don't line up. They're kind of tied. They're kind of tied.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I think it would be part of the discussion. If that, like I said, I think there's solutions to the problem. We need to agree on one. Okay.
Okay,
D?
sure.
I'm not rolling out the big plan,
No.
so go with it.
Well, I think
don't wanna lose my
to me,
packet.
it's sort of the same comments. Again, the heavy dormers that face the sides, you know, they just, I understand why these can't be inset, but because the lots are so small and you're not able to put, you know, maybe more single-story mass to sort of break the height of these buildings, they're just not as attractive as one would hope. If the lots were a little bit bigger and you were able to do, you know, porches on the side because you had some width, or single-story masses to help break up these 2-story shingled walls, or again, bring the roof lines down so that you can do inset dormers rather than flush, I think would be helpful.
there a DA?
Yeah.
There we go.
It's just the basement's not shown as the footprint seems to be the same.
Yeah, it's big.
And there's no exterior basement access. And it's just the basement not being developed.
All right, but again, your intention is to develop the basements in DA, soon to be named something else. So you're going to get us a new plan on that. And what you're saying, I think, Lisa, is these aren't the most attractive side elevations, if some consideration could be given to that.
Right.
Excuse me? Could you go back to that previous set of plans that was just up?
Which one?
The schematics of the basement drawing with the bathroom?
Of D?
Yes.
Sure.
Just one back.
Go back. One back, I think.
So right here, if you look in the top right plan, is that the basement drawing?
No, it's the bottom one.
The bottom one is?
Yeah.
So there's a full bath with a shower and everything, and we're to assume that there's not going to be a bedroom to go down there with that?
No, the bedroom is clearly identified. The bed is drawn in there.
That's,
I know, you see the, it looks like a bed.
Either, but
and given that space, is there any mechanical space in this basement, or are they just going to have
Yeah.
Behind the stair.
behind the stairwell?
No, I know. Do you want to look at the plan here?
You want a big set of drawings?
Well, I'm just looking at it from a functional standpoint. There's not a lot of mechanical space, and as far as utilities, electric is far more expensive than oil or gas on the island for home heating, hot water. It seems like this would be an expensive, affordable unit.
No, this is non-affordable, right? Is this the affordable?
This is not, no, D.
Your head is in the,
sorry.
The mechanical's pretty small in the D.
right, this is a market rate D. Just so you know, this is market rate.
Okay, so even at market rate, it would still be expensive to maintain if you as a personal dwelling.
Well, I don't know that that's something that we need to get into. You know, if they think they can fit the mechanicals in here, it's on them.
You know, I think looking at this, so my only concern is that there's this huge common area, which I assume is family room. Then there's a sitting room. It just seems like a lot of, as you said, the room count.
Yeah, I think the room count is the only reasonable metric we can use to get a sense of whether or not something should be construed as a potential future bedroom.
Right.
And I think it's a concern.
Right.
Because yeah.
I mean, if you got rid of that window well, the sitting area, you know, maybe is no longer potentially, not that you would put a bedroom back there, where you'd probably maybe put it would be under the common area, but get rid of that window well.
Yeah, you could get rid of one window well as a thought and put the gym in there, and with no window. I mean, again, we've probably all seen bedrooms with no windows in them, but it's not legal, and that's the best we can do, I think. So.
Lisa, question
Yes.
question for you on these dormers, and I understand your commentary. What if that one huge, broad dormer were broken up into two shed dormers?
I think that certainly helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because at least the middle would have it.
Would not
have
be-
a lower evil.
Right.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
wanted to sort of-
absolutely.
Because I think that would greatly enhance the exterior.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would cut into, and you'd have roof coming down the middle. Okay. Is anything else architecturally on D? Does this bother you at all? The wall height back in the appendage on the back?
Right.
The plate
Why
height
it's so
seems
tall.
very tall.
Right.
Is there, it's a cathedral space, isn't it?
No, there's a loft above there.
Oh.
Yeah,
the
there is a loft.
I forgot the loft. Yeah.
Are you talking about putting a dormer on this?
No, 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 I'm
No.
talking about this wall height's very tall for first floor,
That's because,
because there's a loft up there. And again, I think you might want to look at that one, so we don't have to talk about bedroom count, whether a loft counts as a bedroom. So maybe that wall height's shorter and there is no loft. Okay. So, does anybody else have any architectural comments about the single-family homes? For now? Does anybody in the public want to speak specifically to the architecture on the single-family homes? Sure.
Thank you. Diane Cabral, 8 South Shore Road. It's not necessarily about just the single-family homes, but my concern was that Ms. Botticelli said that she doesn't want to assume that the grades will be done correctly, or she wants to assume that the grades will be done correctly. And my concern is, I'm grateful for all of your hard work and attention to all of this detail. And frankly, I think some of the designs are really nice, and I don't think that we need to worry so much about the side views, because they're going to be crammed in so tight with the density that we're not going to really be able to see too much with 10 feet between. But my concern is, with all due respect to the developer, and Mr. Feely invited us over to Beach Plum to view them, so that's why we do bring it up. But they did do a few things, like we certainly didn't assume that they would put a garage on an affordable unit and sell it to a full price unit. And we certainly thought.
Hold on.
Okay,
Let's not go there.
Okay.
Okay?
But
Let's just talk about this.
Okay.
Which
I
I appreciate your comments.
Okay, I don't want to, I'm trying to be respectful, I'm sorry, but I don't want to assume anything.
Well,
You know,
that's fine.
We have
That's
forms that aren't filled
reasonable.
in, so I just wanted to state that, and I apologize if I wasn't, I'm just trying to state if it is a fact. Sorry.
Okay. Do you want to speak about the architecture?
I want to speak about a comment that Mr. Feely made early in his talk about the cottages. Sorry, Mary Beth Splain, 11 South Shore Road. When you were talking about the cottages, I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but he used the phrase, it would be a phase, it would be one of the building phases. And it got me wondering what a phase is, how long does it last, how many years does it go on, how long will we be hearing noise over there? Is it 2 years, 10 years? What are these phases, please?
Well, it was on the list of things to get to.
Oh,
And,
I'm sorry.
And I appreciate you bringing it up. Are we finished with the architectural portion of the discussion tonight? Yes? No?
No.
No. Because we're going to come back to phasing.
Patrick Tafe, 21 Okinawa. If we're concerned about basements being turned into apartments and additional rooms, why don't we just have full basement and crawl space in some of these buildings so that we don't have to worry about that in the future? I mean, if it's intended you need a mechanical room, do you need a giant family room that could be full of bunk beds? I'm just saying, if we are concerned, that's one way to control what happens in a basement, is how you create the basement. Crawl space, full basement, for what the needs are.
It's a fair comment. The developer can take a look at that if they want. Did you want to say something, Jamie, to that specifically? Go ahead.
I would just go back to my earlier comment about how finishing the basements out and it enabled us programmatically to keep the cottages smaller, to cover less of a footprint, and by finishing it, you are kind of controlling it. And so we're going to work a little bit more on that. I want to see area ways to each one of these basements, and we want to basically finish them out. So.
I do see the benefit of putting some of the finished space below ground as opposed to having larger buildings above ground. But I also agree that we need to have a real clear idea of what's happening in these basements, and it needs
Yeah.
to be memorialized.
Definitely. We're not there yet. Architecture. Yes?
Building design, Joan Stockman, 13 Warrow Lane. I have a question about how much noise 60 houses running their air conditioning would make. And I know we're just talking about the house part of it, but that also would include the, I'm wondering about the noise pollution. We hear crickets and all kinds of wonderful things because it's Nantucket. So I'm wondering what this would sound like. Thank you.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, go downtown. Go to Nashquisset. Go to anywhere where the density is roughly the same.
In an effort to make this more affordable, if you had to haul less fill away for all those basements, we're trying to help you save some money to make this affordable.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody else want to talk specifically about the architecture? No. All right. So I thought tonight we might move on to, you wanted to describe why the recreation building is what it is?
So I'll talk about the programmatic concept of the building and then let Chris talk about the architectural element and how it got laid out. But for us, having, what would it be, 70 year-round families living on that site, we were encouraged to come up with some activities that would work for family activities. Spaces for those families to use, as I mentioned at the last meeting, for birthday parties. When it comes to the condo buildings, there's not an awful lot of additional space to entertain for things like that. And so we talked about having a property management company, having an office on site to help control and keep an eye on the HOA regulations and make sure that they're being enforced, also as part of the ongoing landscape and painting maintenance. So having a property management office on the second floor as well as a community room were things that we wanted to incorporate. So there's a activity element that's good for the whole family. That's the bowling, and the gym is certainly something we wanted to make available to the neighborhood. The changing rooms, that all is part of the pool. And having guests for the pool, I guess. I think it's actually mandated. We talked a little bit last time about the kitchen, and that's to support the community rooms. And then I guess that speaks to most of the spaces. I mean, there's 2 rooms on the first floor that are going to be community meeting type rooms, property management office on the second floor, community room on the second floor, and bowling house in the basement, which we're really excited about them. But
thank you.
Can we show the recreation building plans? Can you go back one, Roland? Thank you. No, that's good.
Please try to speak into the mic for everybody.
This is a lower level plan, so basically it's, as Jamie mentioned, it contains the function of 2 bowling lanes, a fitness room, an arcade, and then changing facilities and shower facilities for that use down at the lower level. It's about a 4,800 square foot footprint that you're looking at here. I think we had a glimpse of this at the last hearing too, these floor plans.
Yeah, we looked at it.
Yeah. Again, we're We've got restroom facilities that are basically meeting the occupant load for the property, and the fixture requirements are basically determined by the number of occupants in this building. So it's we talked about the mail room, so that basically all the mail function will be handled here and not at the individual cottages or the condos. Be a small office here also that is not part of the sales and property management offices that are going to be up on the second floor. Catering kitchen, that's the purpose of that kitchen. So it's not a full service kitchen, but rather for any events that need to be catered. And potentially, you know, a little espresso bar for the people in the community. In terms of orientation, from the site plan, the bottom side of the sheet is where the parking is. And that's where you enter, and that's from the east side. On the west side, you'll see that there are a couple of pergolas, and beyond those pergolas is the swimming pool. Going to the second floor, and we're kind of well under the eaves or well above the eaves in this situation. So the center mass is essentially going to be a cathedral ceiling space that's largely open to below, and the right side and the left side, one of which, the left side is meeting rooms, and the right side is sales offices and then property management offices, is just linked by that open walkway between the two. If we go to the elevations, I think we had talked about, I know we had talked about essentially before we had any design for this recreation building, that we were thinking about capturing some part of Surfside's past. And what's sort of reflected here, and I'm sorry I don't have images, but we've kind of used the Surfside Life-Saving Station, now the Star of the Sea Youth Hostel, as kind of a guiding principle in the design work. So we've got single-story eaves, all the dormers are set back, and you'll find some of these same architectural features within the Life-Saving Station. The gable in the center with the cupola is really derived exactly from the youth hostel, and the bracketed entry, and that happens on both sides when we get around to the other elevation, is also derived from the youth hostel. So,
okay.
So this is the backside. It's hard to distinguish in two-dimensional drawing, but essentially on either side of where the French doors are in that covered porch, we have pergola. So essentially you would be, in a sense, standing from the pool, looking back to the building. In addition, we have created open porch on the left side, which basically also provides access to the changing room facilities, and on the right side is screened-in porch, which relates and allows people to spill out from the sitting area to that side. But if I had the photos of the youth hostel, you'd sort of see a lot of similarities there. Anything? Do you have another elevation? Yeah, side elevation there. So, you know, so try to keep the mass low so we don't have any, you know, two-story dormers going up, and that everything is set back from the eave line.
Well, I think it's, you know, it's an attractive building. There's no question about that. I wish some of those same principles of mirroring the Life-Saving Museum could be used in the architecture of the single-family dwellings, because it is attractive and it's appropriate to the neighborhood. That would be, you know, my comment in terms of the direction of this. It's architecturally, I think, attractive. It's a big building.
It's way too big.
And I sort of feel like...
It's 118 feet long, I think.
Yeah, and, you know, in addition to the other apartment buildings, it just seems like you could use some of the square footage and not have as much mass back there and put some units in here or do something with it so that it's not just a, I don't know, it just doesn't seem necessary to me at this size.
Yeah, I think it's completely out of scale with Nantucket. I think it's out of scale with, designing with Nantucket in mind. It's a more impervious surface. I don't even understand it. In terms of entertaining and events, I mean, is it your thought that if I, as a condo owner or a homeowner, could invite 150 of my closest friends over for an event? Because that certainly wouldn't fly. So if you're talking about 10 kids having a birthday party, the building doesn't have to be 118 feet long. If it was 4,800 square foot footprint, roughly times 3, it's a big building. It's out of scale. It doesn't, in my opinion, fit with what I hope is going to come back on the condos too. Does anybody else have any feelings about that building?
I agree. It's way too big. I think you could take off that whole section, the screened-in porch, the sitting area, the catering kitchen, the coffee bar, the mailroom, lop that whole side off. The great room could be the mailroom because you're going to need more space than that really small room that you have there. You could make a meeting room, community hall back where you have that office and women and men's restrooms and move those restrooms over to incorporate the changing area. It does not need to be that big. Just by comparison, I live in Naushop. There's, I think, 190 houses in there. We have a small clubhouse, but children's birthday parties are held in there. There's like 25 kids and parents. It's plenty of room. And we have, changing areas, and this is just giant.
Yeah.
You could put a tennis court probably in there or something instead of having this sitting room that who's gonna, this seems to me that it would be appealable for if you were renting your home in the summer that there's this, this facility there for the summer, but I don't see year-round people who are living there using this. It doesn't.
Well, I can see them using the gym.
Yeah, the gym, but you don't
The
need.
changing
But who's
room?
we're not at a ski lodge. Like, who's hanging out in the sitting room?
I agree.
And who's working at it? Who's maintaining it? Like, it's not the Westmore Club. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me for this type of development or this area. It's way too large. They don't need all these amenities. And then what happens with this sales office after these are all sold? I know what happened to the one in Naushop. So it's way too large.
Just to answer your question, the sales office would essentially become property management space, office space.
Yeah. It's way out of scale. So I think some thought has to be given to this building. Also, just an FYI, if I'm at the pool and I have to go to the bathroom, I'd have to come through the community hall to get to the bathroom, so you might want to consider, I know there's a changing room outside, but I would think also you're supposed to shower before you go in the pool. Just from a functionality standpoint, I think you should tighten that up, but not only is it big, it increases the drainage requirements, I'm assuming, because of the impervious surface. I'm not even sure how it fits into the zoning bylaw. I haven't gotten a clear answer on that. I know there are other ones.
Not of this scale, though.
No, not of this scale.
I have a question. Your 21 total parking spaces at that community building, those are in your total, that's in your total parking space count, correct? Okay.
What was the answer to that?
Yes.
So
That's
those
correct.
21 spaces, most people really think that goes towards the residential units when in fact it doesn't. It's 21 spaces set aside only for this structure.
I don't, yeah, the notion of outside parties, I can tell you, even if this building were part of the ultimate decision, it would be conditioned so you can't have a party in it, because that just goes against everything, as far as I'm concerned. Other than, again, you and your 15 friends, kids, but that's it.
Just to respond to that particular comment a little bit, it wasn't envisioned by us that there would be some big part, that you'd have a wedding reception or anything like that. It's really, the idea was to accommodate the condominium folks as much as anybody, and that, I would say that would be the difference between this and Shop, right? So you have people that don't have a ton of inside space for entertaining, and so providing them with that space and some additional activity was what drove it for us, as well as I think that, you know, what we're doing here is really unique to Nantucket in that there's a low to moderate income element, there's a middle income element, and then there's a seasonal element. And so I don't think that exists anywhere else that I can think of. On the island, you have kind of a whole mixed use community in there. And by providing a good quality community space that we hope would get used a lot, it's just a place for, you know, positive interaction. That's what we're hoping for.
Well, I understand that. I think it's just too big, and I wish some of the square footage could be used to actually give some outdoor space to some of the condominiums somehow so that they can have access to the exterior as opposed to having to come out their one door to get to walk to a big building like this to recreate or entertain. You know, if they had access to a terrace area where they could have friends over, that would be much better to me than having a big building that I think 80% of the time it's going to be empty or feel like you're like a pinball in it. There's just so much space.
Yeah, seemingly it can accommodate, I don't even know how many people, because I don't know how to do the calculation, but it's certainly more than your immediate friends and family. It's huge. I don't know that.
Well,
I mean, I don't know what you need.
I mean,
There's a catering, a full-on professional catering kitchen. I mean, I just that seems, in a coffee bar and an arcade, and it just seems way out of scale.
The catering kitchen yeah, it's hard to concentrate when you're chatting. Now you see, I lost my train of thought. It's over. Let's
Catering kitchen.
Catering kitchen to me smacks of, oh, I want my kid to get married here.
Okay, so we're listening. I mean, it's not intended in that way, so, you know, we can be responsive. And also, you know, we do look forward to coming back with some of the comments you guys have made toward the condo buildings. We know that's not tonight, but, you know, let's see where that goes.
Well, but to Lisa's point on the condo buildings, and as it relates to this building, if those condo buildings are designed differently, and I know there's a great design out there, I don't think we've seen it yet. This type of space might not be necessary, because I have my own little private space to hang out with my 4 friends.
Well, we are hoping to get interaction between the whole community in there, as opposed to, you know, just the 2 or 3 people you may have over for the game on Sunday. But
Well, I mean, not to, you know, not to compare it to a college dorm, but, you know, in a college dorm where you have, you know, bigger apartments or whatever, like, you know, there was a common room or a community kitchen or whatever, something like that, where there were those spaces. So when you did have something outside, you know, it was contemplated that there you are going to have things where you may want to have more space than your unit, condo, whatever allows for. And I agree, if the condo buildings were designed a little differently, you could make something in each building that may allow for that and then have more green space, which I think would be more valuable to the community, because they already have their own condo. They don't need it. I'd just be interested to see what you come up with.
Right.
Okay.
And I just wanted to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but last time you talked about integration of the condo units to the cottages a little bit more, and this building at this size seems to completely,
It's like a fence.
it's like a big wall I know it's supposed to bring people together, but visually, it seems to be like a stopping point. So, maybe there's a way of bringing some of the condo units more to this side of the development so that they do integrate with the cottages a little bit more somehow.
Yes, there's a little language between the two. Again, I don't like it, but I don't like the two distinct portions of this development. I mean, it's not only the design of the buildings, which are hopefully going to evolve, but you're setting it up so it's two distinct groups of people. And that seems uncomfortable to me, but that's, I don't know if that's within our purview or not, but it's just a comment. Anyway, so does anybody want to speak about the community building?
Can I make a comment regarding the basement?
Of the community building?
Yes.
Sure.
So if you look at the basement plan, as Mr. Feely mentioned, he's hoping to have 70 local families in this area hanging out. If you have all 70 of these local families hanging out in this basement, there's only 2 forms of egress, which are all the way to one side, push to the left third. If you look at that, is that safe? Is that functional?
Well, presumably it'll meet the building code for this type of building.
And/or presumably it's not going to be this building, which I thought we just discussed, but.
Hi, I'm Liz Coffin at 47 Union Street, and I wanted to just bring to your attention some history, which might give you a feeling for possible outcomes, which is in the late 19th century, 1885, when the tourist season all up and down the East Coast developed, they created very large hotels. And the facade of this looks strikingly like one of these great wooden hotels. The problem being is that there were fire traps and they were economically unsustainable. So I even know of a developer on an island, Long Beach Island, who personally burned down his hotel structure of this size because he couldn't make any money. And it was a pit, it was a hole for him. And I just wanted to, the last, in fact, maybe you know, in Watch Hill, the Ocean House was one of those big hotels. And of course, it's now adapted and made into condominiums. So it didn't burn down, although we always thought it was going to. And this seems to be like just another instance of it 100 years later. And it's just not economically worth it.
Thank you.
Hi, do we know the height to the top of this building name? Sorry, it's Jill Veith, 12 Orkwa.
The height to the ridge, the primary ridge is 30 feet.
Yeah, to the cupola?
Well, that's
Top
a
of
zoning question, because the zoning bylaw actually permits exclusion of cupolas from overall building height.
But what is it? So how tall?
Give me a minute. Give me a minute, and I'll
Okay,
let
sure.
you know.
Since he said catering kitchen, does that mean it's going to have like a commercial license and have commercial responsibilities? I mean,
I
is
don't
it
think
stainless
we're in
steel
favor of
countertops
that.
and stuff? I don't, and how do you, and then the other question I have is, how do they control like the alcohol there and all those things too? It's a bowling alley, the arcade, the coffee bar, who shuts it down? What time does it get shut down? You know, that's noise, that's lights, all those things. And where do people park for all of it's for friends? Where are they going to park?
You can only have 21 friends come.
But there's
Plus
no
they
parking
carpool.
lot, right? I didn't know if there's a parking lot, maybe. So those are my main.
To answer your question, it's about 8 to 10 feet above the ridge.
Okay, so we're looking at 40 feet.
Be 38 feet. Call it 38 feet.
Okay, that's fine. But it just seems like for such a commercial space, you know, are they going to have a store in there? Are they going to sell Nantucket T-shirts? I mean, I don't know. It could obviously go on and on, but.
Yeah. Well, I think they understand that there's definite concern with the board, from the board in terms of the scale and the functionality of this building, so hopefully they'll
Okay.
think all these things through.
And can I make another comment? It's like a more general comment, sorry, but he talks about it being a year-round community, and I know he's saying more 70 families, not 100 families, but 70. That's what I heard him say tonight, I think. 70 year-round, not 100.
That's
Okay.
because some of them are seasonal.
Right, I
Maybe-
know, but it's everyone saying it's a year-round community, but it's 70. But when you add that, he's actually increasing the number of units that'll go in the shy list. So I'm concerned about that, because 10% of year-round residences increase our shy list. So it just seems like it would be nice on the affordable side if he would cover that. So if you have 25 affordable units and 7 increase on the shy list, so really we're only netting 18, I guess. Does that make sense?
I didn't follow you, but that's okay.
Brooke, you want to explain it?
Jill,
But that's,
Brooke
she's-
Moore.
You're adding more residences,
Oh,
so
right,
so
yeah.
therefore
Right,
you're also adding to the shy list.
So,
You're adding to the number of overall year-round units.
so the
I-
shy
that's a
list
good
number
point.
will be reevaluated with the 2020 census. And so any year-round dwellings that are created between the original census that our 490 target is set up by the state will change in 2020. We have been building year-round houses, but we've also lost, we think, over 600 year-round residences to seasonal houses in the last 10 years as well. So there's some that are predicting that our shy number may actually go down in 2020, not up. So it's a mathematical equation, so I just wanted to explain it to everybody, what Jill was asking and describing. But indeed, when you build more year-round houses, potentially at the next round, it will increase our shy target number.
Patrick, Dave, I've got a few comments, and then and then Ed, I'd like you to ask Josh a question for me. But I kind of agree with Lisa. This is an attractive building. It's the nicest building on the property right now. I think it's inappropriate and too large, but architecturally, it looks nice. And what it really looks like to me is a clubhouse, maybe for a golf course or some type of a club. But I live in a neighborhood, and I know a good bit of my neighbors, and my neighbors have never come to me and said, gee, Pat, I wish we had a bowling alley in our neighborhood. I just think this is an affordable housing project. Why don't you eliminate this building? Maybe you can drop some of the prices on your $2 million homes. It might be easier to sell them. You can bring the price down. But you could make it more affordable if you eliminate this, and you can give the people that are going to live there some more outside space. I don't know many people on Nantucket that say, I wish we had a big clubhouse in our neighborhood, a big gathering place, a meeting place. Usually what happens in the summertime is everybody complains about them because it turns into a noisemaker. It's an affordable housing project. I don't think you need a clubhouse.
Thank you.
Ed, if you could ask Josh how many bowling alleys he's put in his other 40B projects that he's built all over the state, just as a comparison.
Okay. How many have you done, Josh?
I have never done a bowling alley before, and we hear what you're saying, and the motivation behind this was really, this is a difficult process for everybody, and you know, there's a certain tone and tension involved. At a certain point, there's going to be a community here that we want to make really exceptional. And part of making it exceptional, we thought, was to have a really fun, good, recreational community building that made it into a place that people really want to live. And this may not be it, but that's the motivation. It's not to create a destination for the rest of the island. It's to make this a place that people really want to come and want to live, and be willing to spend the money that's necessary to buy their unit to live here. So you're right, it is part of the total package, and if you eliminated this, it has an impact on what people are willing to, how much they want to live here or not.
Thank you. Did you want to speak to that? No? Yes?
I was just going to say that every person who, I don't live in Surfside, but every person pretty much who's gotten up to make public comment that lives in the area has talked about the rural nature of their neighborhood or their street or the location. And, I get what you're saying, Josh and Jamie. I do. I don't know that this reminds me more of like a golf course community than it does a development going into a rural area where, like as Jim was saying, it's very naturally vegetated, and trying to maintain that neighborhood feel of what that Surfside existing community is, and not and minimize the impacts that this development will have on really changing that neighborhood. And what the clubhouse, recreation building, whatever label we want to put on it, I think really does, along with the really big condo buildings, does really change that feel. I think Surfside people like it because of the rural nature and access, proximity to the beach, the bike paths, getting outside. I think there already is a lot of natural attraction to the area, so I don't know that you need to create these activities for people to do. I think that the landscape around in the area provides a lot of that already, and maybe that's too much of my personal opinion, but in thinking about the development as a whole and how it will be perceived and how it will come together, I don't know that this helps make it cohesive, or it makes it more of something that does not fit in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Okay.
Campbell Sutton, 15 Appleton Road. So
You have to speak a little more into the mic.
sorry. Get closer, taller, something. Scary close. Okay.
Scary
This is
close.
closer. Can you hear me now? Campbell
Yep.
Sutton, 15 Appleton Road. So I think it seems to me one of the things that's driving the length of this building is the bowling alley down below. I think that's an interesting idea, but it's definitely not something that catches fire and people really look forward to doing, or would still have one of the three that we've already had before on Island, and we don't. So I think that could help scale the building down. The main thing, and to Lisa's point, having reviewed the condominium floor plans and things like that, it's really dense living in there, and there is not a lot of move space, like where you can move around in a one-bedroom or two-bedroom apartment there. So I can see where getting outside or being able to go over to another spot to sort of stretch your legs or whatever is a good idea. So I'm not really here or there on either one, other than it's really attractive. I like the elements to it, but probably bigger than necessary. Reminds me a little bit of, now don't take this wrong, but it reminds me a lot of sort of our new elementary school buildings, and our police station that just sort of, it's like they got testosterone going on or something. They just went huge, and you go, wow, what is that? So to that, I just think maybe this has that look like it could be a lot bigger than it needs to be. The main thing I wanted to comment on, for the whole space architecturally, is in all of this, there is not one reference to any solar, any alternative energy. This development is going to be a utility sucker. it's going to put us all over the edge. We're going to need a third cable, and we all pay for it. I think everybody needs to be doing their part. Every new development, every new house, they should be doing their part to figure out how they can cut down on the utility demand, especially when we're becoming more of a small urban environment. And if the power goes out here and we have a storm and there's no boats for a week, which is not unheard of, you know, everybody needs generators. We don't have enough food at the grocery. We really need to be thinking more sustainably about how we can, because the state's concept of our emergency plan is to stay in place, right? Is stay where you are, don't move, and we'll come for you at some point. But anyway, I made that comment earlier at the first meetings, and I still would like to see something being done for offsets on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Go
Joe
ahead.
Leith again. The other thing about that space, as I was thinking about it, is, you know, how do people how do they pay for what they're going to be charged for these things? And, you know, part of the long-term property management business, I assume, is we talk about landscape, but what about managing this building? Who's renting out each space? Who's getting charged for the coffee? How does that work? And is there disparity between the affordable units and the market rate units and what they charge and how they get charged? So I'm curious about that as well.
Thank you. So any other, do we have anything more to say on the community building, or?
Yeah, one more.
Jock?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
two more.
Two?
Go.
A question about handicap access. Jacques Mickey, Ware Lane. I noticed that there is an elevator in there. Is that to give handicap access to the bowling alley?
The elevator is required for providing access to all levels.
Okay. So the bathroom's going to have handicap shower in the locker room and stalls for them to use? It doesn't appear when I'm looking at the plan that I see anything scaled, but I understand that the plan's sort of back of the napkin plan as far as the floor plans go.
Well, certainly we've been making provisions to provide for handicap accessibility.
Great.
So.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, Sean Cabral, South Shore Road. Whenever I look at this clubhouse, I really look at, one of the biggest problems that I see with this whole, affordable housing development in our neighborhood is that it really goes against everything, that our neighborhood really is, and it's just a really great community. And when I see this clubhouse, all I look at is an Airbnb photo. That's what I see this whole community as, is just an Airbnb outlet where I just see great photos. You're going to have a photo of your bowling alley, you're going to have a photo of your arcade, you're going to have a photo of all these little sitting areas. It's going to look like a little great community area. And so if you ever go to Airbnb around Disney World, it's pretty much a lot of the communities have this, and it just looks great in the photo. And it really goes against everything that's around the community, because I think it's more of aimed at just renters on Airbnb than anything that more community people are going to be using. That's all.
Thank you.
Hello, Megan Perry. I have a number of questions, so please bear with me. First, I totally agree with Pat Tafe. This is by far the best looking building on the property. That being said, it makes me think of Transylvania. Like it doesn't do anything for our neighborhood. This building, I think, is the best looking one on the property, but it makes me think of Transylvania. It doesn't go with this neighborhood at all. So that's my first comment. They keep saying that this is available to the community, and I'm confused which community we are talking about. The community that buys in there, the community that provides all the waivers for this development to happen. Who is the community we're talking about getting to use this clubhouse? So that's my first question.
Oh,
anybody?
Sorry. You want to answer them one by one?
So these are intended through the chair for the Surfside Crossing community.
Thank you.
So if I live in the neighborhood on South Shore Road and I'm giving up a lot of what the South Shore Road community is all about for this development to go through. I don't get to use the pool or the bowling lane, correct?
You might as well stand up there. I mean,
Yeah,
we
I
can have
have a
a
lot
little
of
give and
questions.
take on this, but we have talked about this building, and I'm pretty certain that the developer's gotten the message that this building is not going to be the final building.
Okay.
And I hope we're there.
We're listening, of course. Yeah, we're going to come back with some revisions, of course.
Go ahead.
Okay, next one. Oh, yeah, you didn't.
What was your, I interrupted you, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
It's just, I'm just curious, so I live in the neighborhood. I don't get to walk across the street and use the bowling lane? No.
The way we're proposing this building is for the use of Surfside Crossing residents and their guests.
On the topic of the bowling lane, there's 2 lanes. I have one sibling, and I know how much we fight. What are you going to do when you have a bunch of kids fighting for the bowling lanes? What do you do then? How do you sign up? How long do you get to stay in the bowling lane for? Do you get to stay there for 3 hours, 5 hours, 2 minutes? Like, how is that policed?
So the idea about the property manager having an office on site is to deal with these types of issues. And so the idea was, as it relates to both the rooms that would be available for the residents or the bowling alley, for example, that you would sign up and that it would be for a period of time, whether it's an hour or 2 hours or for that evening or whatever. But that's the way that we had envisioned this being scheduled.
So does that mean it's going to get closed down and locked up at night? And who polices that? And how many managers are you going to have? You have a pool, you have a coffee shop, you have a bowling lane. Like, how many employees are you going to have, and how many of them will be sleeping on the property to oversee all of this? I know that's a lot of questions all at once, so if you forgot any of them, let me know. I'll ask again.
Mary Ann Hanley, just like with other subdivisions that have homeowners associations, and homeowners buildings, all of these would be worked out in the governing documents of the homeowners association. Kids have parties. Most homeowners associations require their parents be there and there be some adult supervision. If things have to be open and shut at certain hours, it's up to the homeowners to make provisions for that. It's intended to be for the Surfside Crossing community. It's intended to be supported by the Surfside Crossing community, and the fees will be paid by them, and it will be supervised by them. Again, there will be people that will abuse it. I mean, I've got 2 ZBA members here that told me they have illegal rooms in their houses, so it happens.
I didn't say that. I do not
I have a storage
Wait
loft.
Wait a minute. I didn't say it, and I don't have
I'm
an
sorry, so
illegal...
you have rooms you're not using.
I have rooms because my kids don't live at home anymore.
That's great.
Don't accuse me of having an illegal room.
And I don't have
Mary
an
Ann.
illegal room. I have a loft that I have a...
Yeah, let's just stop it right
Yeah,
there.
I mean,
All right. All of this will be worked out and looked into.
No, I would like an apology right now.
I apologize for you saying you had an illegal room in your house.
So will those managers be living on site?
That has yet to be determined.
And if the homeowners association is paying for these things, I believe I saw on one slide meetings ago that the varying levels of houses, meaning the affordable versus the market rate, pay different levels into the homeowner dues. How do you deal with that? So an affordable unit doesn't pay the $10,000, but the market rate does. They still get the same manager there. How do you deal with that?
So our proposal on common charges is that they vary based on the market value of the home.
Does that mean the manager's level of attentiveness varies?
No.
No?
Marianne, just clarify that. So the HOA if they do this, the HOA has full authority. They hire a manager, so there's not a separate third party kind of controlling this and deciding rules and all that. It's through the HOA. The homeowners have the authority to create these rules, to create whatever structure regulations, not third-party manager.
There will be a structure put in place for the benefit of the homeowners, and the homeowners are all members of the association. There will be determinations made. You know, initially, there'll be a developer and a governing body. Who do we have to hire? When do they have to be here? All of those things will be looked at. It's similar to a homeowners association that has a pool. They have to have a lifeguard. You know, they have to figure out when's the lifeguard going to be there, who has to be qualified. So all of that would need to be looked at. And what we're trying to do with this recreation facility is to make sure that everybody can enjoy it, that it's well-maintained and taken care of, and that it's safe, and that all of the residents in the community, none of them are unduly constrained by it. So, yeah, we have to look at the numbers. There's a lot of rules, and there will be rules and regulations.
But isn't that something that we can also put into our decision?
Absolutely.
Right. I would say that it would mainly come from us.
Feedback on that.
Well, I think what we need, speaking to this point, is we need to begin to see these documents, see what you're proposing for the HOA docs, so that people can digest them and we can figure out what we want in there. I also think, with regard to this building, I don't want to talk too much more about this particular building, because I don't see this building being built.
May I ask questions that are not about the building itself, but the ideas?
Right, but if we're going to get into the minutia of the homeowners association, I just think it's premature, only because we don't have any. They have to come up with that for us. And your points are all well taken. I would prefer to have the document in front that we can pick apart.
Okay. Can I
But
ask
go
one
ahead.
more? Okay. Then about the pool. Do we know what kind of pool it's going to be? Salt, natural, chlorine? That plays a big part in environmental aspects.
So we haven't decided. Are you talking salt versus chlorine? I mean, we're open to
Or
whatever.
natural.
We're open to discussion on it. We haven't made an ultimate decision on whether it's going to be salt or chlorine, or if there's a better option out there, we're happy to look at it.
Okay.
Well, excuse me. I think at some point you have to decide what you're going to do so that we can evaluate it. So don't, we are aware that there are options. So come up with one that we can then talk about. Go ahead.
Okay. If you're going to be providing this communal area, and there's the potential for, say, a liquor license required, as every other place that serves liquor is going to have, who's going to be policing this? Who's going to be doing patrols? Will the police be able to do a sting and check for underage drinking, something along those lines? And is that going to be further taxing our police department that has a hard enough time downtown, never mind on this kind of estate-like property? How are they going to be able to do that?
There is no intention to serve liquor where when any type of liquor license would be required.
But there'll be a communal area with one grill for cookouts. Will there be alcohol being consumed there?
I do not. It would be probably no different than your own backyard if people have cookouts. But again, it's something that we would look at and would be part of the rules and regulations.
Do you want to ask while I organize my notes? Do you have something? I have a speech, basically. I just need to organize my next questions
Go
because I
ahead.
don't want to ask questions you don't want to hear. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
let
fair.
her go and then I'll
That's
ask.
fair.
Nance Berry, I live on...
You have to speak into the mic.
Nance Berry, I live on Korea Lane off South Shore Road. Okay. Because Nantucket is an island far out to sea, when I happened across a cover story last July in USA Today, headlined, "Artificial Light is Killing the Night," I was inspired to try and start a movement to preserve the dark skies here. There exists, as documented in the news story, an International Dark Skies Association. There is growing awareness that the stars are less visible across the globe, with profound effects on humankind, indeed on all living things. There are national parks out west that have finally realized that stargazing is an attraction. Half the park is after dark, a recent slogan. The light pollution from East Coast cities and vast development makes creating a dark skies preserve on Nantucket a noble and worthwhile endeavor. If a national park does not seem feasible under the present administration, why not move forward under the Commonwealth and/or county to ensure that our island becomes a protected stargazing destination? One little woman started the daffodil planting. It became a tremendous tourist attraction during the early spring when there was little demand. Stars are year-round. When away from town and artificial light, the constellations and meteor showers are breathtaking when it's clear. Be still star-swept. Let it mean the night is a starry dome, not that the stars are weeping because we do not love them. Echo cabins, like in St. John, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and even a planetarium museum can be planned, creating a unique and lucrative new island attraction. Spillover, when there are no more reservations available at the preserve, will fill the inns and bed and breakfasts and restaurants
Okay,
for an enhanced season.
I have to cut you off at this point. We're not talking about creating a,
Well, what I'm trying to do is recognize that this development is going to destroy the potential for a dark skies preserve.
Yeah,
And
I appreciate that. The Dark Sky Preserve, in creating one on Nantucket, is not in the ZBA's purview. I'm sorry to say. Bring it to the selectmen, bring it to the state of Massachusetts.
Pardon me? I know, the NIMBY, the townspeople have been overridden by the NIMBY state. You know, nothing we do matters. They're going to override us. That's what I'm hearing. It's already, I already called the state representative. I called the
I think a more worthwhile conversation is to talk about the light regulations that are in place on Nantucket.
Right.
And that the
I have them
applicant will have to abide by those. And when we get to the lighting plan, at some point.
Is there a lighting plan?
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Your comments will be welcome, but talking.
One thing from the 2005 bylaws that were already passed at a town meeting.
Go ahead.
The secondary purpose of this chapter is to preserve the rural nature of the countryside, enhance nighttime enjoyment of property, to protect property values by controlling light trespass, and to enhance the enjoyment of the night sky. 2005, passed the town meeting.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Mindy Levin, 10 Folger Ave. My mom lives in an apartment building, and in the basement of each building is a community room. It seems more accessible to just go downstairs in your own building than across the property with your birthday cake.
Thank
And
you.
they also have storage for each apartment down there, so everybody has a designated storage area.
Thank you.
A question for town council. In the 40B law, they're allowed to be exempt from local zoning laws for residential development. Does this allow them to also install commercial space into a residential development that's not zoned for it, i.e. a sales office, commercial kitchen, coffee bar, any for-profit endeavor?
You should speak into the mic, George. I know who you are, but.
Yeah, anything that they're looking for that violates zoning, they're looking for waivers. So we'd have to get into that about the particular uses. There's a waiver table that they have. That's going to be your decision. Sorry. Usually people say the opposite. I talk too loud, but it'll be for you to decide whether or not to grant waivers or not, and you know, whether you have valid local concerns, which that are reasonable, you know, impose reasonable conditions, deny waivers for reasonable reasons, and then they would have to prove that it renders the project uneconomic if you were to deny a waiver. So we'd have to look at the zoning provisions and at issue as to each of the issues.
Right, I think that I don't think the waiver list currently contemplates any sort of commercial use.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
So if that is your intention, you gotta let us know, ask for the waiver, so that we can act on it. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it.
I think this is a Peter Freeman question, but it's our understanding these aren't commercial applications, they're ancillary uses too. And so, you know, we'll address this next time, I think, with Peter when he's here.
Would a sales office be used for profit generation? If you're selling something, you're going to make some money off it, I'm assuming. That'd be a commercial activity, right?
Sales office would be to sell the units.
I'm sorry, what? I couldn't hear it.
It would be just a place for us to bring people so that they could look at plans and for the units and buy units.
For profit.
Yeah. Within the limits established by the comprehensive permit.
Thank you.
We need some clarity, I think, on whether, or you need clarity, as do we, as to whether or not additional waivers are required on this particular issue. I also think a model home, I don't know if that would be the same problem. We had one at...
Yeah, I think it's a concern. I'm confused about it myself. I don't know what you do for your customary practice on Nantucket, but a sales office like that sounds, I'm confused over it, about what exactly is being proposed. Like, why wouldn't it be subject to a regular real estate agent, you know, in a established office off a site? I'm not sure what exactly is proposed on that sales office. And it was kind of strange, and maybe it was just a misstatement. It seems strange that you're going to have a sales office, and then that's going to be taken over at some point by an on-site development manager. All that really needs more detail.
Yeah, it needs a lot more detail, if that's the direction you want to take. So that'll be on the list, more detail. It's all about more detail.
I just want to make sure I understand. Are we asking them, is this going to be a real estate office?
I'm not asking that. Are you asking him that?
Okay, I'm asking then, is this going to be a real estate office?
No, it's not going to be a real estate office.
Okay. So that's question number one. All these managers that are going to be needed to come in for this development, to oversee things, are you going to be setting aside any housing for them? As you are well aware.
That has not been determined yet.
It isn't, but we have a housing issue on Nantucket. You're bringing in new employees but not providing housing for them?
We'll be looking at that a,long with the entire building and what we plan to do with it.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Since this is a development for only the people that live there, not for the entire community, will you be installing a security gate, like one that's at, say, Nantucket Golf? How will you be policing people coming and going in and out of that?
It's not my understanding that there would be a gate installed.
Okay. So is there any way to police who's going to be there and who's not going to be there?
Beware.
Be on this development?
It's no different from pretty much any other development where we have to have streets for people to get in and out.
But
and
you
we
have
don't
this-
plan to lock people out. We don't plan to lock people in.
So you have this recreational facility that may or may not happen, and a bunch of guys come down for a bachelor party. They find out that this is here, and they go from the brewery to here, and they party, but they're not part of the community. Who's going to be policing that?
It's going to be locked. There is going to be property managers on site. The neighbors, I mean, you know, people that live there, if they hear this going on.
Will the pool be locked? Will the grill be locked? How are we going to?
Yes. They will be, I believe the pool by building code is required to have certain locks, and the buildings, of course, will be locked. We don't want people in there that don't belong there.
But all by staff that don't have housing on Nantucket?
I haven't said that yet. If people within the subdivision would like to staff it, that would be grand.
But the developers or the applicants are not willing to set aside housing for employee housing or for people who need housing on Nantucket that you will be employing. Is that correct?
That's correct. We need to make our housing available.
So how are you helping the housing problem on Nantucket?
We're building.
All right, yeah, I think we're getting a little afield here. Let's.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a general comment. Just the name of what you're calling the Surfside community shows you why it's not appropriate. Nobody's even talking about living on Nantucket. This could be like a Surfside community, a separate group that could be anywhere. It's really not appropriate for this island. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are we maybe finished with the community building? And no, go.
I have a question about the sales office. Who owns the sales office? You've got to know that, right? Of all the things you don't know tonight, you've got to know that. Do you own the sales office?
Let him answer, please.
Well, the idea of the sales office was we have 100 homes that we are planning to sell. And so this would be a place that people who are interested in buying them would be able to come and get a presentation, understand what the pros and cons and floor plans look like and prices, et cetera, and that would be on site and it would go away once the units were sold. It's not intended to be and won't be a permanent real estate office, if that's what some people are wondering.
Okay, yeah, I guess in my mind, that's what I was thinking. Thank
Right.
you.
It's not going to be that.
Okay.
Did you have something to say? No. No?
I'm back.
I see that. Go ahead.
So we've been at this for almost 9 months, right? And I've heard a lot of, we'll get back to you on that. We'll provide that to you. We don't know the answers to this. How long do we have to wait to get answers to some of these questions?
It's a process. We're going through the process.
But it just seems like we're wasting
There is a lot of wasted time. I'm going to agree with you there.
A lot of wasting of resources.
A lot of it.
Town council's here.
I agree.
The lights are on. When can we get a set of plans we're going to stick to that's going to answer questions that the board is asking?
Well, I think up until now, we haven't had the opportunity to get into the details. This is, the past 2 meetings are the first meetings where we've really been able to look at architectural plans and talk about some of these issues. So, they haven't had any commentary on it. They're just beginning to get it. So unfortunately, I think there were a bunch of meetings that, although very good issues were brought up, a lot did not get accomplished. And we're beginning to try to get into the point now where we can get answers to a lot of the questions that we as a board have.
Well, I think things got accomplished, but again, it's a process. And if we want to go over what happened to the sewer main in downtown Nantucket last winter, that's taking up time. Is it appropriate to be talking about it? I don't know, but we've been here arguably doing our job, and we're getting to the point where we're getting to the nitty-gritty. So yeah, we want more information. We're asking for more information. In the applicant's defense, absent any direction from us, what the heck is the point of just developing new plans that we're trying to give them some guidance in the development of those plans? So having said that, how long are we staying here tonight? What's that? Yeah, no, we want to talk about a few other things, but I want to know how much time we have. Are you? No, I'm not here.
Not all night.
I appreciate the notion, though, but I've had just about enough.
It's up to you how late you want to go. I have to meet with the select board at 9 a.m., so that would be my ultimate limit.
I would say 45,
Yeah, I think
45 minutes. I need to be somewhere at 8:30.
Yeah, no, I think 8 o'clock is more than adequate frankly, 8:15 is fine.
So we should save the last 15 minutes to talk about the next meeting date.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we just talk about it right now? We need an extension. So, is there any issue with that?
We would actually like to try and, while we were all here, schedule another meeting date in December, 2 in January. And then if we could get those dates coordinated, we'd be willing to sign an extension till the 15th of February. Was that the 15th?
And
I'm
if we
sorry.
can't, for some reason, you're not willing to? Because that's how you put it. Just want to be clear.
We would really,
You'd like to schedule.
there's a lot of detail that you've asked for, and we're trying to provide it. And these are long meetings with a lot of technical nitty-gritty, and if we know that we've got certain meeting dates set up, we can get you the information in an orderly fashion. People will have a chance to actually look at it and read it ahead of time and understand it, so it would be really helpful for us. We know we need an extension, but we'd like to get some dates in mind while we're here. The holidays are coming up. It's easier to do it tonight while everyone's here.
Yeah,
I think it
let's
makes
do it.
it makes sense to keep it fresh too. I think it's helpful. You know, we had the meeting last week or whatever, and then to have it again, it keeps the conversation going so we don't forget. I know. I need to.
Yeah, I didn't do this. Okay, so let's talk dates. You guys are good every day, it appears, the Surfside Crossing
May I ask a
team.
question, please? Since it is
About the date?
Yeah, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, it is a public hearing, and I understand it works for the developers to meet every day, because this is their full-time
We're
job.
not going to meet every day, so
Well,
let's just get to the point,
Well,
please.
okay, fine, to meet once a week or whatever it is. It is really hard on citizens who have a full-time job to be able to come back here every week. It's difficult. And so I feel as though we are trying to rush through this process and cram it down when we come to a meeting tonight where they don't have a lot of answers for us, and it's just frustrating. So I just wanted to say that. Take it for what you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, dates. Your dates are on here. My dates are on here in December. I can meet once more in December. So let's start with this December. Are we good for Thursday, the 13th? No. No.
We have a meeting that day.
We already have a meeting. We could double up. I'm enjoying it. How about Monday, the 17th, or Tuesday, the 18th?
Let's do Monday.
I prefer Monday, the 17th.
I'm unavailable.
Eleanor's unavailable. Okay.
You can still have the meeting.
No.
So if we have to do it the Thursday, we'll do it the Thursday, if those are the last dates.
Tuesday.
No. I'd rather do it the 13th.
Oh.
Well,
Is the 13th too soon, though? I mean, well, the 13th.
How much time do you guys need to get some?
Right. So that's
There's plenty to talk about. It would be nice if there was more detail. Again, when you say you want meetings and you're going to provide us detail, speaking to the point of detail, the plans we had today, they didn't even have some of the basements done. I mean, you need to get this stuff to us if you want more meetings. Because I, by the way, have a job and am a volunteer as is everybody else here, FYI, and I don't like wasting my time either. So if you want to have more meetings, you need to get on it. Like, get us the homeowners thing, get us a phasing plan, get us finished architectural plans. I mean, this stuff, you know all this stuff's coming down the pike.
So as part of these scheduling, if we could identify an agenda for those meetings, that'll help us to focus on whatever we're going to do. Let's say we're meeting on the 17th. If we know right now, we'll do our best to, really bear down on those details.
The next meeting is going, I think, is, yeah, we could meet Christmas. No, I'm going, thankfully. We're going to come up with a few more agenda ideas. One is we're waiting to see a new proposal for the condominiums. I think we talked about, and we're pretty clear about the community building now. And we would like to talk about phasing. Came up tonight through the public, but it's certainly on our radar. And by the way, smaller, more compact condo buildings would certainly, I think, enhance your ability to phase. But that's neither here nor there. I digress. Homeowners Association. Again, the regulation on how this whole thing is going to work, if and when it's approved or voted on, it's an important aspect, and we haven't seen any of that.
Do we
So-
still need more sewer information?
Well, my understanding, and I don't, I'll just ask Don. Don, where's the sewer stand? Don left. All right, somebody else answer that, please.
We have, Don is preparing something that's going to go into that will be a revised sewer proposal based on the give and take that we've had so far with the town. And so we've gotten some new information from the town, and we're responding to that, and we'll be presenting that to you shortly.
Thank you.
Revised, as in you have a set of plans that you have.
Hold on. Hold on. Okay?
What
Did
about
you-
traffic? We never really kind of got back to that after some of the discussion that happened last week. Or am I the only one that felt like we were going to revisit that based on some of the comments that they brought up about the intensity to their neighborhood as opposed to the island, which is what all these traffic studies look at?
Well, my feeling on a lot of these issues, traffic, sewer volume, et cetera, boils down to the site design.
It's
I mean,
boils down to
not
density.
density, to the site design.
Well, and the number of units in there.
Yeah, okay. So it boils down to the site design. So that's what we're trying to get to, so these other issues can be further defined. There's no point in designing a sewer plant or sewer facility for 156 units if 156 units is not going to be approved. So we need to get to the site design.
So we should concentrate on the site design and the architecture.
Yeah, the architecture is a little less important, but yeah, yes. Again,
When I mean
not
architecture,
necessarily dense.
I mean the buildings.
Yes, the site design. So that's where we're trying to get to. And it's very difficult to get there if we get sidetracked. So I would like to get there so that we can then talk about these other items.
So I think.
Because why talk about, excuse me, I'm ranting, but why talk about phasing if you don't know how many buildings or what the buildings look like? So let's get to that, a reasonable facsimile of that, and then we'll go from there.
So why don't we just meet on the 18th?
Yeah.
Because the 13th is too quick.
Are you available?
Mr. Chairman,
I'll make
I would just, in defense of the zoning board, you've had in defense of the developers on occasion.
On occasion.
This has been a difficult process. It started back when we submitted in April. We think we had our first meeting in May. It took a while to select peer reviewers. The first meeting we've had on the housing program since the revised plan came in late September, was 1 week ago tonight, I think, or last night. This is the second one. We've gotten a lot of feedback. You are owed by us a response on the condominiums. You're now owed by us a response on the community building, although I would argue that that's a lesser issue as well. And we've now gotten a bunch of feedback from you on the single-family homes, and so we've got some things to do on that front. I think if we can meet in 2 weeks and we can focus on the condominium plan, we'll have a sense of whether we're getting to something that we're going to be able to agree on or not fairly soon. And so I think that if we can have a meeting in 2 weeks, we can get 2 more dates down on the calendar in January. We extend the deadline, as Mary Ann suggested. I think that that'll get us a long way towards having a sense of whether we're headed to something that we can all live with.
Yep, that's where we're trying to get to.
Right.
So,
18th is the only date in December.
it
Just left.
seems to work for,
Well,
Was the
like, isn't
19th
enough time?
yeah, I mean, we're not meeting past the 18th, I don't think. I mean,
It's not available.
well, I know that. The other issue is, let me just poll the audience here. We might have more flexibility if we go back to the other room.
You might have more people show up.
Well, that's my question. I mean, the crowd clearly can fit in the room now. But if we schedule it at the other place, is the crowd going to swell?
I don't know, but then we have to postpone
I
the meeting
mean-
again.
I think for the,
What's that? Go ahead.
It's a risk.
I think at this point, it would be a much better conversation in the other room because this was a fine room for when we had the bazillion people here, but, and I'm so appreciative of the people who are dedicated, who come and sit and comment and show up. But I think that the number is probably going to drop off and not increase. I think moving back to the other room would go a long way with making the conversation go further, just because of the acoustics and the environment and all of that.
Well, and I certainly think in July, which was when the meeting, was it June or, and then we moved we had the meeting here in July. There were a lot of summer people here.
Which,
for that
by the
hearing.
way, if the auditorium wants to be filled, we'll meet here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I actually do appreciate much of the public comment. There's some great thoughts that we need the help. But this room's a little tough. Let's call a spade a spade. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Meet after the 18th because the school is
Yeah, the
closed.
school closes.
Mr. Chair?
Check.
I have absolutely no idea at this time of the availability of any rooms in the PSF. I cannot check that from this computer. I do
Gotcha.
know what the availability of this room is, as I check on a daily basis
Gotcha.
with the people who manage this
Okay.
room. So
Can
if
we
I have to go
Okay,
back,
never mind.
December 18th.
December 18th. Let's see, we got one. Okay, Tuesday, December 18th, 4:30.
Should we do 2 weeks, or 3 weeks?
Does that, I mean, how many days is it? That's,
10.
yeah, that's, no, it's more
11.
than 10. New math. It's the 5th, it's 13.
13.
Mr. Chairman, can we get confirmation that they're meeting with the HDC? Is that enough time to get plans so that we're not jammed up the night before or the day of with these plans? Is that
Meeting the
plenty of lead
13th.
time?
It's a very valid question. What is the agenda for the 18th?
Well, again, yeah, there's plenty of other things to talk about. So I thought you had said that we might see something by then on the condominium portion of this development. And that, in my opinion, doesn't have to be. If you're loath to develop full-on plans at this point, and I would be okay with sketch plans that show 3 different concepts, for instance, and what do you guys think? And not getting into the minutia of who's going to mow the grass and whatnot that night.
All right.
So,
I like where you're going with that, and I think that might work with the HDC as well, so.
yeah, well, again, the HDC is another issue, but you may very well be going back to the HDC for the condo buildings. So, that would be my preference on the next meeting. With the condos. The way this meeting's gone, that will probably take the entire meeting. But if it doesn't, we still need to talk about the notion of phasing. You know, you must have some idea of what you're going to do. So just get it out there. The homeowners association.
I think the most frustrating thing here is that this isn't your first 40B. You're making it sound like this is uncharted territory, and it just seems like all these things come up to a waste of time. That's my personal take. Because I also have a job, and I also have to travel. And I don't think you guys are gonna pay for my ticket from overseas. I just want you guys to keep that in mind.
Yeah, we need to keep grinding away. I think it is a frustrating process, believe me. So we're on the 18th.
What about the 9th of January and then the 23rd?
No, I'm out.
I'm out that entire week,
The 9th.
9th through the 14th, 15th.
So what about the 16th and the 30th? That's 2 weeks, that's 2 meetings in January.
That's a month later. I mean, you could do the 3rd.
Well, I do mean just
Wanna
because
do
we
the
have-
3rd?
The 3rd is kind of hard, though. That's the holiday. Well, I guess there's 18.
I'm not here then.
If we meet on the 18th, then it's
3rd of January?
Christmas week, and then it's, I mean, that's, I don't,
And, yeah.
doesn't seem like there's a lot that's going to get done. You know, we could schedule it.
Oh, you mean not a lot, probably on the other end.
And then the very end of the month?
Yeah,
We'll make
done.
2 by December, by whatever the ultimatum was.
First of all, yeah, the ultimatum does not matter. If you don't want to give us an extension, just have at it. We want to get this process over as soon as possible too. So, just when maybe you think a little bit about more than about what you say, because it's yeah, whatever.
So
All right,
the 16th of January?
seemingly works for me.
That's what day is that?
It's a Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And did you say there was another day?
Well, then I would just go to the Wednesday, the 30th. Maybe the 30th, 2 weeks later. And then, if we have to continue to meet in this room, we should look into the schedule, the dates for February, because I know I'm traveling a little bit.
I can certainly, between now and the next meeting, find out the availability of the PSF rooms for January. I just can't look at it for December.
I understand.
So
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
for
just
perfectly
throwing it
willing-
out there from the perspective of if we feel comfortable moving back to the old building.
I would
I
prefer
certainly
the other
do.
building.
I certainly
on
feel
many
like-
levels, but I don't want to have an open meeting law violation
Right.
or problem.
I'm not around the last week of January.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, we got 2 scheduled. I think that's the best we're going to do right now.
Excuse me, when was the one in January?
The 16th.
16th and the 30th?
Well, I mean, we could,
traveling
are you, what
so the
what
16th.
dates are you gone, Jeffrey?
Gone that entire week.
From when to when?
The
28th?
25th through the I'll be back on the 2nd.
Can I just make a point, Mr. Chairman, about this? And I respect all your time and you allowing us to speak, and I've learned so much in this process. But if you have a meeting here on December 24th, we're going to be here.
Well, we're not. But
Okay,
we
but
appreciate
you
it.
might not, but I'm just telling you, we will. You know what I mean?
Good.
So I just want to.
Again, I'm not trying to discourage the public
I know,
comment.
but I do feel like we're running out the clock on this. They don't have to keep going, is my understanding. They can just appeal it whenever they want after the 180 days.
Not if they can, not.
Okay, okay,
Not if,
good,
that is
thank you.
just not even
Thank
close
you.
to true, but unless they don't give us an extension. They've said they're going to give us an extension. So yes, anyway, let's not talk about this. Let's just try to get a darn meeting date done, okay?
Okay, so the 18th and then 16th.
So Jeffrey, you'll be here the 24th
Of
of January?
January, yes.
It's a Thursday. Let's schedule it.
Is
We
that
can
a long-
always
Is
reschedule
that
it.
a long weekend?
On a Thursday?
No. Oh, I thought it was a Friday, sorry.
Wait a minute.
I think we took out all Fridays.
No, I'm not here the 24th.
23rd?
Yep, 23rd, yep.
So that'll be 116 and then 123, which is fine. We
Yeah.
could be dealing with different.
So 116 and 123. That's only 1 week apart.
So
Oh.
they're not going to get started until after.
No, we're going to get, no. We're getting the extension tonight, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was, you're willing to extend it to February 15th, did you say?
Right, which is another month.
Yeah, I mean, again, at any time, you can, the applicant has the their prerogative is if they, well, never mind, they can say no if they want, but. Yeah. We could, and we may, but we're not there. So, thank you. All right.
Can I say one thing, or?
Yeah, so we don't need to vote on those dates, do we?
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
For the next hearing at least, you should.
All right, so can I get a motion to continue the hearing to December 18th, 4:30 here?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? No, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so do we want to do the January ones? Oh, yeah, and let's do the January ones. Do we do that? We don't really do that, because, yeah, we can't continue it till then. Okay, but those are the dates.
Yeah, have a motion to schedule it, and then if we need to change it, you
Okay.
can.
So can someone make a motion to schedule the next meeting?
So moved.
I like that. To the 16th and 23rd of,
At 4:30 in a location to be determined.
you can't do that. Well, you can. Let's just say here for now, and if we change it, we'll do it at the next meeting. Okay? So that was your motion, Jim?
Yes.
Who wants to second that? Second. Thank you. Anybody want to talk about that anymore? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so that's scheduling. How about the extension? Do we need to vote on an extension? Yes? Yeah. Okay, so can someone make a motion to accept the extension to February 15th, 2019?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? No, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we have a few more minutes, if everybody wants to stay. I think we've exhausted my list. And, yeah. Well,
In case you couldn't see that.
Waivers. I think at some point, we can talk about any of the waivers that don't pertain to site design. So be prepared. I'd rather start that a little fresher than at 8 o'clock.
No, I don't mean now, I mean next time.
Yeah. So that's yeah. I think I've, unless anybody, are there any other sort of agenda type items that we want to get out there sooner rather than later?
I feel like there were some things that were brought up at the last meeting that I don't want to.
Yeah, please.
That I don't. There were some things brought up at the last meeting that I don't want to have fall through the cracks. Like Jeff brought up none of the drainage swells, involving cutting of the buffers. I'd like to see new plans that reflect that. Just if what else was brought up last week?
The idea of moving the wells for Zemicki.
Oh, right, moving the wells.
So Don has been working on that already, and I think it wasn't
Right.
on the agenda for today, so we didn't bring it, but.
The parking being the ring around, but that'll come with the condo development changes.
That's right.
Yeah, hopefully when we see the new condo development, it'll be so great and so beautiful, and everything will have been worked out that we won't have to be here for another 6 months. And one can only hope. Ron, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just wondered if they could come up with what the condo fees are going to be. I used to have a condo myself and was one of the directors there, and ours were was $22,000 with the taxes. So the condo fees were about $16,000. So they ought to come up with that. I don't think anybody's going to be able to afford this horrible mess anyway to move in there, basically. And we ought to wait and see what's coming up on the two selectmen that retired that came up with the idea of appropriating $30 million to buy 30 different houses for low-income housing and rent them out to them. That's a great idea. I'm for that 100%. in all different places, and they're already built in there.
Thank you, but we're
Good.
not talking about that right now.
Well, let them come up with the figure that it's going to cost to even buy one of these and be able to live in there. That's what I'd
Thank
like
you.
to know.
No, I mean, clearly, that was a good point. You need to get that information together.
Yeah.
The home, I vaguely remember seeing some homeowner fees earlier on, but again, the project's evolving, economics change, so ideally we get to the site design that's finished, and then we can get some of this stuff done.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question about the recreational building.
Seriously?
And the question is, because I know from my real estate experience in Manhattan that they have affordable housing, and sometimes the affordable units have a separate door. I know these are bigger buildings. What's going to be the access for the affordable residents versus the other residents to use the facility of the recreational building? A higher price for the, you know?
I don't think we're going back in time like that. So
What?
I'm going to answer for the developer.
Well, it's still on the board.
Well, no, I'm not. Go ahead. You have to answer it.
Everybody has the same entry.
Same, they all get to access, affordable or market.
The 40B law, they have to, they couldn't treat the affordable and the fair market value different. If they did, they'd be in big trouble, so that would.
Even a sort of an elective.
It can't be an elective, I don't think.
Okay,
It's
well, that's good. That's something.
I think so. One other. Oh no. Let me go first.
I waited to the very end for this one.
Okay, let me
so-
go first. So hopefully I'll go to the 8:50. No, I'm kidding. On the sheds, we need to talk about the sheds. Are we good with the sheds? Just keep it in mind. There did seem to be, I think it's sort of simpler just to go with one shed size, 8 by 10 for everybody. So we're not worried about, oh, this one got a 6 by 8 and that one got an 8 by 10.
Would you be open to, if we, as part of identifying which lots we want to see the spas on, we also included the shed and sized it as part of that? It's just that some of the lots are bigger, and if you could get a slightly bigger shed, it'd be preferable.
No, I'm saying put the big one on every lot.
But on the smaller lots,
They may want a spot instead of a big shed.
so my question to you is, would you be open to, if we show them on everyone and give you a chance to look
I
at
guess
it
so. I
in
just think
place?
it's crazy, but the difference between 2 feet, but it's up to you. I mean, you can put a bike and two bikes in a 6 by 8 shed, but not my bikes, but. Go ahead.
I realized what I gave you in my packet, or in the packet that I gave to you was incomplete, so I was just going to give you this document. That's all.
Sure.
Not a question. I'll take
What's
it.
that?
It's in further completes what I gave you. I just didn't get it. Sorry.
Are you going to send that to me?
I'm going to give it to you.
Just so long as you guys have it. I want to make sure I gave you, my stuff.
All right, so we talked waivers a little bit.
You want a question, or?
Would you, I mean, one other comment on the sheds, it's really silly, but would you make some of them rotate them and put the doors on the eave end and,
Yeah.
again, so
that
they
makes
don't all
sense.
look like they came from,
I like that. We're talking about a lattice on one side, but I think actually placing them on the individual lots will help us to that end, and maybe we'll come back with,
different.
if you're open-minded to that, to different
Yeah, I mean,
door
I would rather
configuration.
make double doors on the long side so I can get more things in rather than going through a narrow
Right.
door.
And I think the more detail you show, the more, we can visualize how it's going to be on the ground, and it makes it easier to make the decisions.
Okay, thank you.
The other, just from a design standpoint, I don't know how you feel about this, Lisa, but I think some staggered setback, not so that everything's not in one line going across. I think you should think about that in terms of the site design. I'm not saying the plans we have are the final, but it does look pretty straight in most areas.
Again, I think that because you guys asked us to further develop the individual landscape plans, that would be a part of that process.
But
Okay.
I think, looking at the, you're talking about looking at the overall plan and
Yeah.
having a little bit of
Stagger.
variation in the front
Like
yard
these,
setback.
Oh, on how this house is set
Yeah,
back,
on the
but not on
houses.
the
If
actual
I'm looking
setback
at the
itself.
houses
Yeah.
on,
And I think that the
on any
landscape,
road, they all just line up.
right, so,
So I'm just saying, a little bit.
okay.
Not, they don't completely line up, but,
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
okay. Just trying to get it all out there. The AC issue came up earlier. I think to be fair and equitable, all the units have AC. You said you were going to do that already. That's about it.
And also, if you know what you're going to be getting, what kind of air handlers, what decibel. So we need specs on that, because the lady that spoke earlier brought attention to the amount of noise that's going to be going through that neighborhood this summer and winter. So put that on your notes.
Okay. Anybody else have something something new? No? Let's go.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye.